chocolate each day does a body good. Combine that with almonds and the benefits only increase. So take some time and top your oatmeal with some bittersweet chocolate almonds for some added crunch, or add some to a granola mix. Also on this date, in 1991, Irving Magic Johnson of the LA Lakers shocked the sports world when he made this announcement.
Because of the HIV virus that I have attained, I will have to retire from the Lakers today.
The diagnosis, while shocking, would eventually help to shine a spotlight and bring more attention to the terrible disease. I'm Tushar Saxena, and that's your Fox Daily Snapshot.
A great smile can make you feel happy and confident. So when you consciously conserve your teeth, that glowing smile will show through. At Best Dental Group, doctors Economos, Gavalis, and their staff are ready to help you create that perfect look or maintain the one you have now. Along with general dentistry, Best Dental Group is a multidiscipline practice with an orthodontist, periodontist, and prosthetic specialists on site. They use the newest breakthroughs in dental technology such as titanium implants, Invisalign clear braces, and laser treatments. Don't let fear get in the way. They can recommend sedation to make your experience as comfortable as possible. Best Dental Group is located in historic downtown Bartlett and is a multilingual office. Call 630-830-4930, 630-830-4930, or visit bestdental.org. Best Dental Group, sharing your conservative values and helping you to conserve your teeth.
Our veterans are our heroes. They answered the call to defend our freedom, putting their lives on the line for our nation. But today, thousands of those brave men and women are facing something no hero should ever face: food insecurity. That's where Farm to Veteran comes in. Through the Fulcrum Farm Foundation, this remarkable organization delivers farm-fresh, nutritious food directly to veterans in need through veteran services and organizations. From greenhouse-grown produce to eggs, they're ensuring our heroes have access to the high-quality food they deserve. But Farm to Veteran can't do it alone. They need our help. Your financial contribution directly supports their mission to feed more veterans across their growing network of partner farms nationwide. And there's another way you can make a difference. Join them at their upcoming community events. Visit farmtoveteran.com today. That's farm2veteran.com to donate or learn about events near you. Because those who served our country shouldn't have to wonder where their next meal is coming from. Let's stand with those who stood for us. That's farm2veteran.com.
Don't get stuck with a cold shower this fall. Give CenterGuard Plumbing a call. Get a new 40-gallon water heater installed for just $1,195 for standard installation, or a 50-gallon heater for $1,295 standard installation. A proud new sponsor of AM 560, CenterGuard is offering specials on new water heaters. Don't wait. The cold temperatures are coming, and the same can happen to your water heater. If you're having hot water issues or your water heater's over 8 years old, take advantage of this fall special today. CenterGuard Plumbing is Chicagoland's same-day water heater experts. Call before noon, and they can schedule your repair or install the same day on in-stock water heaters. They'll even haul away your old one no charge. You're only a text away from install today. Call 847-406-8883. Mention AM 560 to receive fall special pricing. That's 847-406-8883. Call or text 847-406-8883 or visit CenterGuardPlumbing.com.
Coverage varies by plan. View contracts and exclusions at EnduranceWarranty.com.
If you're driving a car or truck with an expired warranty and suddenly lost your transmission or needed a full engine repair, would a $4,000 repair bill leave you stranded? I'm Danica Patrick. Don't get caught off guard with a vehicle breakdown. Choose the company I trust, Endurance. No matter the mileage, if your vehicle is less than 20 years old, Endurance offers auto protection plans for any budget. Protection on the drivetrain, electrical, transmission, AC, and more. Plus 24/7 roadside assistance and rental car reimbursement on any plan. Endurance handles everything, from making the claim to paying the certified mechanic of your choice. Act now and get 1 full year of elite benefits. A $2,000 value, free.
Call for your fast free quote today. Call 800-289-6016. That's 800-289-6016. 800-289-6016.
Making the switch to a new communications and IT company may seem like a big ordeal, but if you're not getting the reliable support, consistent internet, and secure solutions your company needs, meet Access One. your local Chicagoland IT experts. Access One has been powering Chicago businesses with secure, reliable IT solutions for over 30 years from our headquarters right here in the West Loop. Whether it's VoIP phones, dedicated internet, managed cybersecurity, cloud backups, or 24/7 support, Access One is here for you. Serving thousands of companies from Naperville to the North Shore, Access One is Chicago-owned and Chicago-run, a trusted IT partner for law firms, clinics, tech startups to manufacturers. We'll make the switch easier than you think. Let's talk. Call 800-804-8333 or visit accessoneinc.com. Rated top 5% in customer satisfaction and a Better Business Bureau A+ rated business. That's accessoneinc.com. Tech made personal locally.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Hi, I'm Bob Chavato, owner of Go Exceed and a customer of Signature Bank. By leveraging AI and machine learning, we provide data management solutions for corporations to save time and money managing their cellular devices. While we rely on machines to help us run our business, we believe personal relationships are essential. This is why we chose Signature Bank. Having a banking partner who understands our background, our business, and our priorities is fundamental to our success. Any bank can provide basic services, but having a bank that you can trust, one that looks out for you and treats your business like its own, that's irreplaceable.
Signature Bank helps local businesses succeed. Want to learn how Signature Bank can help turn your business vision into reality? Call Signature Bank at 773-467-5600 or visit signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hi, my name is Dr. Michael Huber. During cold and flu season, a nearby cough or sneeze can trigger a familiar dread, that helpless feeling of being defenseless against an invisible viral threat. But what if you could change the narrative? What if you could fortify your body's natural defenses? This is why I developed Virago, the immune enhancement cocktail designed to give your body the upper hand. Virago is more than a supplement. It's a revolutionary liquid formula packed with 23 powerful natural nutraceuticals for rapid absorption. This unique blend is scientifically crafted to help build resilience and keep you protected. Don't just hope for good health. Make it happen with Virago. Virago and Maha, making America healthy again.
Virago. Order your bottle today online at myvirago.com and use coupon code IMMUNE to save 30%. myvirago.com. Coupon code IMMUNE.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be breezy with clouds giving way to some sunshine, reaching a high of 63. Tonight, expect increasing cloud cover with a low of 43. Tomorrow will be cloudy and cooler with a chance of showers in the morning and rain in the afternoon. By nighttime, there is a possibility of rain transitioning to snow with a high of 48. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Portions of the following show may be pre-recorded.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So this week down in Miami, there was the American Business Forum. President Trump spoke at it. Talked a little bit about Republicans needing to do a better job of accentuating the positives, the positive economic data emanating from the Trump administration. But I thought more interesting for our purposes here in Chicago, our parochial interests, was Ken Griffin's interview at that American Business Forum by our friend Bret Baier. And Ken Griffin spent just a little bit of time, but it was noteworthy, offering more comparison and contrast to his time in Miami over the last 3 years versus his time in Chicago. And the juxtaposition of Ken Griffin's comparative experiences, I think, is interesting because that doesn't only speak to the trajectory of the two cities and corresponding states, but it also speaks to maybe more of the accentuating of the positive that we need to do in Chicago at least, prospectively. I'll explain a little bit more after we hear from Griffin, although I think it sort of becomes evident what I'm getting at. Ken Griffin of living in the failed city-state of Chicago and Illinois versus Miami and Florida.
The people of New York deserve better.
And do you think it maybe leads to an exodus down here?
Right, and so if I look at Miami, and I look at why Miami is so successful, the focus on education, the focus on public safety. These are safe streets. We live in a safe city. The focus on community. This is a city that has great pride in what we've accomplished together and what we will accomplish ahead. I've lived in a failed city-state. I lived in Chicago for 30-some years. I had 2 colleagues who had bullets fly through their cars. I had a colleague stabbed outside the front door of our office. I had 25 bullet holes in the front of my building where I lived. You can't live in a city awash in violent crime and feel proud to call that place home. So I'm grateful for the leadership in the state of Florida. This is a great place to call home. And I hope and I really hope that when Mamdani thinks about leadership, he thinks about the right role models. And there's a lot to copy.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. Talking obviously about New York, but Chicago gets folded in quickly because the conversations are so dismal. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. You can't live in a city awash in violent crime and be proud. I know. Get Chicago out your mouth. Right. You can't comment if you don't live here. Even if you spent 3 decades here, as Ken Griffin did, or almost 5 as I did. Even if you have made tens of millions, probably hundreds of millions in philanthropic donations during your time here, as Ken Griffin did, you still are not allowed to comment. That's the great fallback position of the lobotomized denizens of the city. Not all are, but many certainly are. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line and text line. He went on to talk about what the dinner conversations are like in Miami as compared to dinners before he left, and maybe say over the last decade in Chicago.
Do you know how great it is to go to dinner and people talk about their children and they talk about their future and they do so with excitement and enthusiasm? We lost that in Chicago in the last 10 years. Dinner in Chicago would be about crime, about cronyism, about failed policies in the state. It is so refreshing to be in a city where people talk about tomorrow. And I think that's a really important topic here in a roundtable on business. Entrepreneurs are people that believe in tomorrow. It's really tough to start a business. Like, don't kid yourself. You don't own your business owns you. So you have to have a great deal of optimism about the future of where you live, the community you're part of, the country you're part of, to start a business. And it is so great to see the optimism that we have here in Miami. It's really special.
It's such an interesting comment about, having to have belief in tomorrow to start a business, to drop anchor, to take big risks where you live. And, you have to believe things are going to get better. I mean, this is what I've observed for a while, probably, I don't know, at least the last 10 years that Ken Griffin is talking about. The fatalism that sets in, which ironically, as much as people are disgusted with the way things are, they settle for it. And Eric Hoffer, the longshoreman turned philosopher, explained this in his book about mass movements. He said, basically, in order for things to change, people need to believe that, number one, things can get better, and number two, that they have some control over their destiny. And if they don't believe those two things, then even if things are particularly bad, they will default to the status quo because they're afraid it could get worse. They've stopped believing it could get better, but they're afraid it could be worse. So let's just hang on to what we have now or settle. Don't really believe in tomorrow. Don't believe I have any ability to control it or impact tomorrow. So I'm just sort of hunkered down and hoping it doesn't get worse. Come for me last. And I think that's a pretty good explanation of why Chicago's trajectory is in one direction and a city like Miami's is in another. The other thing, too, just about the conversations, that's really telling. I mean, think about the conversations you have at dinners with your friends or just, throughout the day. Think about what the topics are that are most often discussed once you get past the, how about this weather we're having? Is it optimism about what's going on in the schools or what's going on in your particular professional sector? Is it about things other than the government? That's the thing that always struck me, particularly with some removal from it now. And I'm reminded of a conversation I had with a manufacturing sales rep that I think I've recounted on this show before. This is years ago now. But this manufacturing sales rep had like a 12-state territory right through the center of the country. And he was not from Chicago. And he said to me, the thing that's so interesting about Chicago is people here talk about government and politics more than all of the other states I cover combined. It is so government and politics centric. And I spent enough time in Miami to know it is very different. I mean, the demographics are different, and that has something to do with it. The particular composition of the city is different. Industry distribution is different, and so forth. The seasonality is somewhat different, although that's changing rapidly in terms of year-round residents, even among the wealthy. And you increasingly have to be wealthy to live in Miami. But I think that's a telling comment. Both what Ken is talking about with respect to dinner conversations that he's noticed. I'm sure you have perhaps noticed similar once you get outside the city and you talk to people, or the state, and you talk to people from other places. But that other comment, that's what it immediately brought to mind, was that manufacturing rep just said, "Why you guys are so obsessed with government and politics?" Yeah, I know. It's a problem. It speaks to a society that is government-centric, that all things run through the government, that politics is how you make it or you don't, regardless of your business in Chicagoland. And that's a sad commentary, because that is not a description of a place that is going to be dynamic. And I think that's maybe some of what Griffin was getting at in that conversation. Matt, Mount Greenwood, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Good morning, Dan. It was spot on. You don't often think about how government-centric it is, and the conversations that we have almost always revolve around politics. I have 4 children, and all four of my children, 3 specifically, have no desire to live in this state. And it helped that I said, you've got to get out of here, and explain the reason why, plant the seed, and let them do their own homework. It is so true. Two of my sons go to school out of state. These conversations are so much different. I've traveled a little bit in the last month and a half. I've been focused on it. It's not government-centric, but it saddens me because of the fact that our roots are here, right? And we're pulling up roots. And the plan is for us, my wife and I, my youngest child, to get out of here in 3 years, and we fully intend on doing it. But it's right. It's draining mentally, physically, financially, frankly, to stay here. And so, breath of fresh air to have an adult conversation or conversation with your young adult children about something other than politics, about their future, about what's good in this country, about the people who are good in this country. There's a lot more good than bad. We have to remember that. But here it's hard. Have a good day, Dan.
Thanks for the call, Matt. Yeah. And, you know, and it's exciting because people are thinking about what else can we do, as opposed to, you know, how can we avoid the swords of Damocles that are hanging over us at every turn? I mean, in Miami, you have a Republican mayor outgoing. You've got a Republican mayoral candidate backed by DeSantis that's in the runoff for the mayoralty that happens December 9th. You've got a term-limited governor who's not just, you know, marking days off a calendar. I mean, DeSantis in his, you know, final year of being governor, pushing incredibly. I mean, pushing to eliminate property taxes altogether. I mean, I don't know if he gets there. But I mean, the fight is among Republicans in terms of how far to go in providing additional property tax relief. I mean, the idea, this is a state that has 55% more population than Illinois. It has no state income tax. It has much lower property taxes, generally speaking. The test scores, government school kids, better than Illinois. You know, and they've got police departments and fire departments and all that stuff that we have here. And you get no state income tax, lower property taxes, and a push to eliminate property taxes altogether. Could you imagine the explosion of property values and demand for property in Florida? I mean, it's already pretty high, and it's getting higher coming from the Eastern Seaboard. Can you imagine what something like that would do to property values? Can you even conceive of that? And here, people just sit back and allow their home to be liquidated to pay for government schools that aren't making the mark because they've given up. And so this is why I say, you know, the part of the Republican renaissance, if there is to be one here, it cannot just be like just cursing JB and BJ and all that they have wrought, and you know, every other Dem socialist in tow. It has to be like something that you can grab onto for tomorrow, something that you can rally around. You know, sort of a blue sky, not just a big blue sky ideas about what is possible, the direction that we can take this state. If there's a little bit of hope that can be renewed in people's hearts and minds. Even just doing something like putting down the marker that Indiana put down with their 3-2-1 property or 1-2-3 property tax caps, right? 1 on residential, 2-1. 1 on homesteaded, 2 on other residential, and 3 on other personal property, commercial, industrial. I mean, that would be a revolution here. But you got to put markers down and then say we're going to charge in the direction of those markers. Chris in Rogers Park.
Hey, Dan, I think that second clip you played of Ken Griffin was really good. And what I want to know is, how do you do politics in a city like this in a positive way if you like what someone like Dan Proft is saying? I mean, we have a big problem here. Forget billionaires. We need millionaires, okay?
Yeah.
We need millionaires in the city, and people are afraid to kind of show themselves as millionaires or get involved because they don't want to become a target.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a fair point, Chris. Thanks for the call. But I mean, I think you do have to point to what's happening in other places and says, this could be us. It was us once upon a time. West Palm Beach and Miami surpassed New York City as the world's fastest growing wealth hubs. West Palm saw a 112% jump in millionaire residents over the past decade. Miami saw a 94% increase. You know, West Palm is a wealthy enclave. Miami is a metropolitan area. I mean, it's obviously not the size of Chicago, but it's a significant city. So don't tell me it can't be done in urban centers. It's being done in an urban center. And that's Griffin's point. So part of it takes, you know, that sort of that mindset readjustment. and to really be as persistent with readjusting the mindset in the direction of entrepreneurship and away from government centrism, like Griffin was talking about, and being as dogged about it as the left is with their Democrat socialism and their Democrat socialists that they've elected. I mean, that didn't happen overnight. It's been this sort of slow, steady decline that's increased in pace. And so, of course, the inertia is in their direction. And it's going to be that much more of an effort to reverse it. But you have to start putting markers down with big ideas that contrast from the failed efforts of longstanding office holders. Andy on I-80.
Hi, Dan. Again, thanks for having me on the show. You're hitting the target, and remember, this is not just Chicago-wide. This is statewide. I've got relatives in Champaign that I visit, Carbondale that I visit. Business-wise, I go to Mantoon and Springfield. Those discussions are at the tables in the government juicy epicenters. So it's a statewide consideration, not just Chicago.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Andy. And one of the things we have to, get away from is playing sort of the tired, downstate versus Chicago or Chicagoland thing, and because downstate's not going anywhere, and neither is Chicago. So Chicago, going back to Mayor Daley, has done a great job of socializing its problems and its costs to the entire region and to a lesser extent the entire state. But you've got to have these bigger markers that you put down that I'm suggesting that have appeal to rally people beyond their sort of regional dispositions and to see it as in their self-interest locally and the state's success in their self-interest locally as well. Coming up at 5:38. Oh, now Megyn Kelly says it's okay to have the conversation about Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes and Kevin Roberts and everybody else. Now it's okay because she interviewed Tucker Carlson. Oh, okay. Thanks for letting us know, cooler. 5:38. Now we check the headlines.
Good morning. 48 degrees in Chicago and AM 560 The Answer. I'm John Cruz in the Lowe's newsroom. Partly cloudy and 56 today. Showers moving in late tonight. A federal judge issuing a sweeping injunction that places more permanent restrictions on the use of force by ICE agents. Judge Sarah Ellis extending restrictions put on enforcement through a temporary restraining order last month. Now, the order limits use of tear gas and other riot-controlled weapons. DHS says they will appeal that ruling. More protests planned in front of that Chicago daycare where a teacher was arrested by ICE agents in front of young children this week. Witnesses say the teacher was chased inside the daycare, despite the teacher telling them she had documentation. And all is calm at O'Hare and Midway this morning. Just a handful of delays outbound, but it could be a different story this weekend. The FAA is capping flight capacity at 10% around the country to alleviate bottlenecks from fatigued air traffic controllers who've been working overtime without pay. So far, over 800 flights have been canceled nationwide as of this morning. The support brought to you by Lowe's. New at Lowe's, ProBlock Quick Dry Primer. Expertly manufactured by Sherwin-Williams. Engineered for pros to dry fast, block stains, and go on smooth for virtually flawless results. Available now in oil and water-based. Grab yours today at Lowe's. We're checking your weather forecast coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Leads to the Democrats.
Tens of thousands of federal workers will be laid off and they will not be rehired if the Chuck Schumer shutdown continues. So if I were a government union representative, I would be on the phone to Senator Schumer, ask him to make his remarks brief, to the point, and reopen the government.
The Hugh Hewitt Show. Afternoons at 2, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
This past year has been one of the hardest in MyPillow's history. It's because of you that they are making it through. They want to thank you for your continued support by extending their wholesale prices on classic MyPillows. Get standard classic MyPillows for only $14.98. It gets even better. Upgrade to a queen size MyPillow for just $18.98. King size only $1 more, or multi-use pillows for only $9.98. Get body pillows for $29.98 with a free pillowcase. So go to mypillow.com or call 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY to take advantage of these wholesale wholesale prices, including the standard size MyPillow, originally $49.98, now only $14.98. Queens $18.98. Kings only $1 more. That's 800-489-0201 and use promo code LIBERTY. Order $100 or more and your order ships absolutely free. We know MyPillow products come with a 10-year warranty, but MyPillow has just announced that they are extending their 60-day money-back guarantee. That's right. Orders placed between now and December 25th will have their 60-day money-back guarantee extended through March 1st, 2026.
Hi, this is Sean Thompson. When you take your grandkids to Disney, do they know what's in your investment portfolio? Do they even care? They're busy having a great time, and you're busy making memories. At Alpha Wealth Group, Tom Fortino understands the nuts and bolts of retirement planning. The investments, the stock market, taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and much more. But think about it. What are you really trying to do here? Is your goal to beat the S&P, or is your goal to make memories with your family? At Alpha Wealth Group, their goal is to give you the confidence to spend in retirement without the fear of running out of money. Call Tom Fortino and the team at Alpha Wealth Group to learn more. You can do it today. Call 630-864-6711. The number again, 630-864-6711. To schedule a no-obligation consultation. You can do it today online as well at alphawealthgroup.com. That's alphawealthgroup.com.
Protect your liver and give it the support it deserves with Active Liver from New Nordic. Find Active Liver in stores at your local CVS, Meijer Grocery, or online at Amazon or at newnordicusa.com.
Now, your official weather forecast.
Today will be breezy with clouds giving way to some sunshine, reaching a high of 63. Tonight, expect increasing cloudiness with a low of 43. Tomorrow will be cloudy and cooler with a chance of showers in the morning, followed by some rain in the afternoon, and rain mixing with snow at night. Temperatures will peak at 48 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Just a postscript on the discussion we opened the show with. Ken Griffin's comments at American Business Forum event in Miami, comparing Chicago to Miami, Illinois to Florida. Reminiscing a little bit about Chicago, but also suggesting, a city that has endemic violent crime is not a city you can be proud of. How dare you? Right. Sure. Okay. The top of the 7 o'clock hour, and part one, and the top of the 8 o'clock hour, part two, a lot more reminiscing, going a lot farther back, and including the suburban Chicago and places that have now become essentially demilitarized zones like the south suburbs. Wasn't always that way. Had the opportunity to interview Tom Dreesen. So Tom Dreesen, we're going to hear from him and his perspective, the native son of Harvey, the pride of Thornton Township High School. We're going to hear from him in the 7 and 8 o'clock hour, so you want to stay tuned for that. Okay, yesterday I was a bit critical of Megyn Kelly because after Tuesday's election, she had this to say.
The Republican Party needs to get it together. ASAP. I'm really glad we spent the past couple of weeks, as Sean Davis of The Federalist put it, policing some young person's group chat, what a podcast host said, and what the head of a think tank over at Heritage had to say. I'm really glad that the Republicans devoted so much time to that. That was a great move. Terrific move. Way to stick together, to really shine a light on what matters. The Republicans like to lose. They enjoy losing. They enjoy when they are embattled and in a losing position and complaining. They love it. They do it really well. Less good at winning, especially when Donald Trump is not there to get them over the line. The Republican Party is not strong. Donald Trump is strong. Republicans don't know how to win. They don't know who to run. They don't know what to do when daddy's not there to fly them across the finish line. And that's just been so obvious. Meanwhile, Trump is all over the Middle East while people's groceries bills are still high. They're still dealing with inflation. They're suffering. Like, that's it. OK, we're focus on domestic policy and on making people's lives better. That's really all I have to say. Those are my top line thoughts. There's a lot to get into on why this happened and so on, but that's my top line takeaway.
That's your top line takeaway on Tuesday night's elections? Really? So shouldn't have been spending the last couple of weeks, some of us really below the fold, inside the chattering class, going back and forth about those purporting to be conservatives who are peddling anti-Semitism. But now it's okay. Now it's okay to do it because Megyn Kelly had Tucker Carlson on her show to talk about this very issue. So it was outrageous for other people to do it at the RJC coalition event the weekend before the election, the response from Bannon, the interview that Nick Fuentes, that Tucker Carlson did, Nick Fuentes, that sort of was the spark for all of this. The message from Kevin Roberts in defense of Tucker Carlson, the president of the Heritage Foundation initially, which fomented it. That was all very counterproductive, and that's just more evidence of how Republicans love to lose, how Republicans aren't strong. But now it's time to talk about it because Megyn Kelly said so, because she's got Tucker Carlson on the show. Okay. Thank you for letting us talk about it now that you're engaged on it, Megyn. Tucker Carlson on Megyn Kelly's show, responding to some of his critics, including a congressman from Florida named Randy Fine.
The main criticism, as I understand it, has been, well, yes, platforming. They say that. I don't accept platforming as a valid objection.
When is that a verb, by the way? You take a noun and you make it into a verb and nobody says anything? As a former editor, I say no.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. Honestly, but as far as I know, Nick Fuentes hasn't eaten anyone. You know, I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer ate people, and he was platformed by Diane Sawyer.
Dude, we have a sitting member of Congress. I spoke to the Speaker of the House about this today. We have a sitting member of Congress from Florida called Randy Fine, who has literally texted or put on Twitter, we should kill them all. Every single one. Someone texted a picture of a dead baby, and he laughs at it. And it's like, this guy's a lawmaker who's appropriating money to a military committing genocide, and that's cool? It's not cool.
No.
And let's just be honest. That is much worse than anything Nick Fuentes has said. Period.
Well, the key takeaway from that remark was he just said that the Israeli military, the IDF, was committing genocide in the war in Gaza. I don't necessarily think that's an anti-Semitic comment. It's not technically anti-Semitic, but it is not particularly evidence-rich, that characterization. I think it's very hard to make out a genocide claim against the IDF. Of course, Megyn Kelly just glossed over that. Speaking of doing interviews that are more about posturing than deep thinking. And we'll get to that point in greater detail with the next thing that Tucker said. But when you're targeting a terrorist organization as recognized basically by the Western world, most importantly by the United States, in response to a terrorist attack they committed, and obviously in the brutality of war, you have innocents that get caught in the crossfire, and that's terrible, and it's not something to be celebrated, if Randy Fine did indeed celebrate that or suggest indiscriminate killing. But I don't think what the Israeli Defense Forces did was indiscriminate killing. I don't think you can make a credible case. I don't think that the point of the IDF response to the October 7th terrorist attacks was to eradicate a people. I don't think you can make that case out either. And those are the sort of comments that have people scratching their head about the quality of Tucker Carlson's thinking and the quality of his judgment calls, both in terms of who he chooses to interview and how he chooses to interview them. And again, he can interview whoever he wants. But so he has his rights to interview however he wants, discuss issues however he wants, develop his podcast however he wants. Nobody is challenging that. But it seems to me, ironically, the people that are knee-jerk defenders of Tucker and anything and everything he says and does, and sort of rationalizing and presenting false equivalences, they think criticism of Tucker's judgment calls and pronouncements on particular topics is beyond reproach. What, he can't be criticized? Of course he can, just like anybody else can. It's always curious to me when somebody is suggesting that criticism is not allowed in this particular on this particular issue or in the direction of a particular person. Sure it is. No one is beyond reproach. Everyone has the right to express themselves. And so then Megyn Kelly built on her. Jeffrey Dahmer got platformed, sort of line of argumentation, and pressed Tucker on the issue of beyond who you choose to interview, because of course interviews are conducted of terrible people who have committed great atrocities all the time, world leaders as well as serial killers. Yes, we all recognize this. But how you choose to interview them is the issue, and Tucker's response.
So the main pushback has been when you had Jeffrey Dahmer or the Ku Klux Klan, or et cetera, these journalists went after them, like exposed the terrible things. And Nick Fuentes has said a long list of very vile things.
Big time, including attacking my dad, which was the most vile of all, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I personally have watched videos of him questioning the Holocaust, likening it to baking cookies in the oven, and there's no way you could have gotten to 6 million, seems to be his theory. He seems to think that we've way overstated the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust. He's ripped on poor Usha Vance in the most offensive terms, which I mean, so what do you say to those people? Say, why didn't you raise any of that?
You know, do your own interview the way that you want to do it. You're not my editor. Buzz off. I mean, I don't know. You want to go yell at Nick Fuentes? I'll give you his cell. Call him and go sit and yell at him and feel virtuous or whatever. That's up to you. I got the same thing with Putin. Why aren't you yelling at him? Okay, why? So I can show that I'm a good person? I care about what my wife thinks, my children think, and God thinks, and that's it. I don't need to prove that I'm a good person to you. You may think I'm a terrible person. Okay, I'm just doing my thing, which is I want to understand what people think. And I'm committed to that. And if you don't like it, don't watch. That's my view. Yep. But that doesn't mean that I share the views. I'm not telling Nazi jokes, obviously, or Holocaust jokes. I mean, please.
312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line and text line. If you don't like what Tucker does with his platform and his interviewing style, then just go conduct your own interview of Nick Fuentes or Vlad Putin. Is that really responsive to the issue, do you think? 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Is that really responsive? Well, while you consider that, Tucker Carlson earlier in the week offered a bit of a clarification on something that he said during the Nick Fuentes interview, which is how he despises Christian Zionists, something that Mark Levin picked up in his commentary on Tucker and others last weekend at the RJC event, Republican Jewish Coalition event. That Christian Zionists, the most, he despises them more than anyone, is what he said. And he decided that at least that comment during that interview is something that he did care about. And so he decided to set the record straight.
But I just want to say at the outset, because this has been weighing on me, I did say something that I really regret saying that I didn't fully mean. I said it because I was mad, which is always when I say things I don't really mean. When I get pissed, my wife's always telling me this. I was snippy and I didn't explain it. And I said something to the effect of, I despise Christian Zionists. And I'm just sorry that I said that, because I don't. I'm mad at a certain kind of thinking. Some of the nicest people I know are Christian Zionists, actually. You know, if you're in a car crash, they would save you. If you needed someone to watch your bank account, they wouldn't steal from you. They're like really good people and sweet people. I want to be very specific quickly about what I was talking about. In at least a couple of different occasions, the Israeli government bombed churches in Gaza and killed a bunch of Christians. And not an accident, of course. I mean, this is like a very high-tech military with precision. I mean, they, gave pagers with bombs in them to Hezbollah. So, like, this is a military, a national defense institution that understands what it's doing. They didn't accidentally bomb 2 churches and kill these Christians, and they never apologized for it. And so I brought this up with a couple of Christian leaders, including the Speaker of the House, and said, like, we're paying to bomb churches? Because we're paying for it. And the response I got from every single one was, the Bible commands us to support Israel. And I said, so Jesus is telling us that we need to get on board with murdering Christians? Is that what you're saying? And they basically were just like, shut up. And I found that extremely, as a Christian, extremely upsetting. And I've never
yeah. So I don't think that's actually the general response. I don't know. Maybe he got that response from somebody. And that's fine if he wants to clarify and offer a bit more tempered characterization of Christian Zionists in the context of the war in Gaza. But nobody suggests that Israel deserves a free pass for everything that it does, every mistake that it makes. They struck the only Catholic church in Gaza, and 3 people were killed. A priest was wounded. I would have to go back and look that up. I should have done it, but I didn't. In terms of whether or not they admitted that the Netanyahu government, the IDF, admitted that was a mistake that they regret. I thought that was done. I could be wrong. And if they didn't, they should have. And yes, an explanation is warranted, and it's fine to press for one on that. As I said, I'm not being flippant about this, but war is ugly business. We know this. And innocents get killed. America has made mistakes. American military have committed war atrocities in the history of our country. And those need to be identified and called out and separated from what is appropriate and tolerable, even in a context of war. 100%. That is not the basis to make the characterization of Christian Zionists that Tucker Carlson made in a moment of apparent anger, which, to his credit, he admitted. It doesn't substantiate the characterization of the IDF and the Netanyahu government as perpetrating a genocide in Gaza. By the way, speaking of people clarifying their comments, Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation, also clarified his earlier this week. His characterization of the people that are being critical of Tucker Carlson and others as part of a venomous coalition.
My use of the phrase venomous coalition was a terrible choice of words. It caused justified concern, especially among friends and allies who know how seriously Heritage has fought and continues to fight against the rise of anti-Semitism. Everyone has the responsibility to speak up against the scourge of anti-Semitism, no matter the messenger. Heritage and I will do so, even when my friend Tucker Carlson needs challenging. My Heritage colleagues know, as do you, the work ahead is too important. Our conservative movement must be willing to wrestle with hard conversations, not avoid them.
But only when Megyn Kelly says it's okay to do so. Greg in Schaumburg.
You know, if I had Tucker Carlson in front of me, I would say, Tucker, you're a person of influence in the world. You have a responsibility to address the incomplete moral equation. And when we're in critical negotiations that are historically unprecedented to end a war that has gone on for ages, and you open your mouth about bombing a church within a history of what Israel has done in terms of warning when they're going to be bombing people so that there's a minimum loss of life, and the assimilation of the Palestinians into their own culture, into their democracy, I would say, Tucker, you're totally irresponsible. You're going for clicks, and that's really regrettable that you have let yourself sink that low. And I would say similarly the same thing to Megyn Kelly, that one of the responsibilities these folks have is to address the complete moral equation at all times. You do that on your show, Dan. I criticized you from the standpoint of how you would do that. You would look at things from a legal perspective and established law, kind of like you were making the case on immigration the last couple of days, within the practical that could be lost by doing so. And I think that's a valid argument. But these people are not doing that. These people are being totally irresponsible.
Thanks for the call, Greg. Well said. Coming up at 6:06, we'll have the latest on the impact the shutdown will have on air travel. It's now 6 a.m., AM 560.
You may need more than patience to fly today. CJ Pop of Fox News. There's no choice for the airlines today, canceling a large number of flights while delays are quickly piling up this morning. And it's all collateral damage from the government shutdown, which reaches day 38.
Right now, the only people to blame are the Democrats who refuse to pass the CR bill that they've already passed several times.
A man in Charlotte, the airport, North Carolina. Fox's Christina Coleman.
Flights will be cut at various airports nationwide due to staffing shortages because of the government shutdown. Now, thousands of air traffic controllers have gone weeks without pay, and many of them are calling off of work, triggering these staffing shortages at many airports as these employees deal with increased stress and financial pressure. And the FAA says this past weekend there were at least 2,740 delays at various airports, in large part due to the staffing shortages. And now passengers are worried about the flight cuts.
Captain James Ambrosi, president of the Airline Pilots Association, telling Fox,
"We call as on airline pilots to reopen the government. Let's not make aviation suffer because of a prolonged government shutdown."
And could that call to reopen the government be answered today?
Senate Republicans are aiming for a test vote on a new spending package that would include long-term funding for the Department of Agriculture, the legislative branch, and the military until next fall. It would also include a promise for a vote on Obamacare subsidies. The deal's fate hinges on Democrats, though. Many want the government to reopen, but progressives are refusing to budge without a firm health care deal, warning moderates not to cave. Vice President J.D. Vance saying in part, the shutdown has now passed from farce into tragedy, and the consequences of this national emergency fall on every senator and congressman who refuses to open the government.
Fox and Beto Rivera, America's listening to Fox News.
WIND, Chicago.
Good morning, 48 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm John Cruz in the AlmostFreeTeeth.com newsroom. We'll start partly cloudy this morning. We'll turn to rain tonight and then snow possible by Sunday. A federal judge ruling in favor of Chicago protesters and journalists by issuing a preliminary injunction restricting the use of force by ICE during Midway Blitz. Justice Sarah Ellis accused government officials of lying under oath. She adds that body cam footage doesn't match what Homeland Security leaders say happened in several incidents. DHS will appeal. Chicago Mayor Johnson denouncing the arrest of that daycare teacher in front of children by federal immigration agents in the north side. The mayor says that video shows ICE agents tearing a teacher out of a classroom. He accused them of acting with impunity, and the city would pursue all possible measures to hold them accountable. A Chicago City Council member considering a run for Congress, 25th Ward Alderman Byron Sigcho Lopez, exploring a bid for the congressional seat that incumbent Jesus Chuy Garcia is leaving. The candidates for Chicago Public Schools CEO are down to 2. The names on the list are not public, but the Sun-Times says it doesn't include the name of interim CEO Macklin King. The West Side chapter of the NAACP is disappointed King didn't make the cut. The final candidates will go through interviews on Monday with a panel, and the school board will hold their special session to decide who they want to hire. Illinois SNAP customers set to begin receiving partial November payments today. The Illinois Department of Human Services says anyone who's supposed to receive benefits November 1st through November 6th will get those partial benefits. And tomorrow morning, the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry holding their Christmas Around the World and Holiday of Lights exhibition. This includes the lighting of a 4-story Christmas tree at 11 a.m., a children's choir and cultural festival. The museum at 5700 South DuSable Lakeshore Drive. Museum members get discounted admission. Think full mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again, not at almostfreeteeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at almostfreeteeth.com. A check of traffic on the way in 2 minutes on AM 560. The Answer.
Get your tickets for Freedom Summit Chicago 2025, happening on Saturday, November 8th at Westin Chicago Northwest in Itasca. This year, featuring Dr. Ben Carson, Scott Jennings, Mike Gallagher, along with Dan Proft, Sean Thompson, John Anthony, and many more. This event will sell out fast, so get your tickets today at freedomsummitchicago.com. That's freedomsummitchicago.com. Sponsored in part by Aid for Women, Breakthrough Ideas, and by Attorney Stephen A. Leahy at Opum Tax Advocates.
At almostfreeteeth.com, they're dedicated to making smiles great again. If you have medical PPO insurance, find out how you could save 90% off on average to get a beautiful dental implant-supported smile. Check if you qualify right now at almostfreeteeth.com.
When age-related health issues arise, don't just treat the body, treat the soul. For over 130 years, Lutheran Life has provided nonprofit, Christ-centered care for seniors. Arlington Heights, Ottawa, Bloomington, and Crown Point. 4 Lutheran Life communities to serve all your needs for assisted living, memory care, nursing, and rehab. Find out how by visiting LutheranLifeCommunities.org today. That's LutheranLifeCommunities.org.
The Tunnel to Towers Foundation honors America's heroes. Heroes like Josh Bischoff. Josh began his firefighting career as a volunteer and ultimately became CAL FIRE's Assistant Chief of Tactical Air Operations until tragedy struck and he was killed in a helicopter collision while fighting a California wildfire. He leaves behind his wife Cheryl and their 2 children, Derek and Juliana. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation paid the Bischoff family's mortgage. Support heroes like Josh and their families. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
An official message from Medicare.
Medicare plans change from one year to the next. And this year, it's important for you to review your current coverage and compare all your options during Medicare open enrollment. Compare health plans, drug coverage, and costs. See if you can save some money, and don't forget to make sure your drugs are covered. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Visit Medicare.gov or call 1-800-MEDICARE.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Imagine spending your holiday season with family, not IT headaches from work. With managed IT help desk services by Access One, you get 24/7 expert support, an IT team that never takes time off for roughly the same cost or less than one IT person. Access One's IT help desk is a local center here in Chicago, ready to help 365 days a year, so you have less IT downtime and no IT staffing issues. You deserve to enjoy your holiday season with family, eating home-cooked meals, not getting interrupted with IT issues. Access One can give you peace of mind during the holidays. It's a gift to yourself and your company. To speak with an Access One agent, call 800-654-1555. Access One is now offering a 90-day risk-free trial so you can discover how they fix IT for good. Learn more at accessoneinc.com/guarantee. IT support tickets piling up? Not anymore. Hand off your help desk to Access One. accessoneinc.com.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Sue Aller. Starting the day off with a stall on the Eden on the outbound side of Dundee Road. It's off on the left shoulder, so outbound Eden from Montrose to Lake Cook is 13 minutes. Inbound is 17. The Kennedy inbound from O'Hare to the Burn Interchange is 18 minutes. Outbound is 29. We are stop and go on the northbound Tri-State as you make your way towards the outbound Eisenhower. And the Eisenhower is 14 minutes in both directions between Wolf and the Old Post Office. office. The inbound Stevenson from the Tri-State to Lakeshore is 18 minutes. Outbound is 16. The Dan Ryan from 95th to the Burn Interchange is 15 minutes. Looking great on the outbound side at 11. We are slow on the inbound Bishop Ford between 100 and 3rd Street and the Dan Ryan Expressway. Traffic is a service of Fox Valley Coins. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be breezy with clouds giving way to some sunshine, reaching a high of 63. Tonight, expect increasing cloudiness with a low of 43. Tomorrow will be cloudy and cooler with a chance of showers in the morning, followed by some rain in the afternoon, and rain mixing with snow at night. Temperatures will peak at 48 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by The Real Story with Jeannie Ives, powered by Breakthrough Ideas. Sunday evening at 7 on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So should Republicans find a way out of this government shutdown post-haste? Cut a deal now that, as Trump observed earlier in the week, the shutdown seemed to negatively impact Republicans in Tuesday's elections. You think that was dispositive of the results of those elections? I don't, but okay. And now it's getting real because it's interrupting air travel. As we discussed yesterday, and it was revealed after the show, 40 airports selected for the FAA for reductions in air traffic in peak times, of course, are Atlanta, Dallas, Denver, LA, Miami, Newark, Midway, O'Hare. Of course, we knew. 10% cut in flights could be. I mean, it's being compared to like what happens during a significant winter storm in terms of the reduction in flights. Some of the airlines have already indicated, United and Delta, I think, that they will refund tickets, even if the tickets purchased were not technically refundable for those whose flights get canceled. And the story was that Senate Democrats yesterday were hunkered down in a closed-door huddle, chewing over a Republican offer from Thune to flip the switch back as early as this weekend. The word is there's some sort of short-term funding patch that is being proposed that would end the quote-unquote shutdown, get air traffic controllers back to work, and provide a little bit more breathing room to hammer out full-year budgets, including the ACA subsidies, the Obamacare subsidies for health insurance premiums that are set to expire at year's end. So the GOP's line basically is reopen first, negotiate the healthcare stuff later. No more clean bills getting filibustered 14 times already. But the Dems want the subsidies up front. I mean, nothing's changed. With some moderates like Fetterman, quote-unquote moderates like Fetterman wobbling. So the pressure is mounting on both sides here, and the election results on Tuesday and some of the postmortem from the punditry are putting additional pressure on both sides to come to some sort of way out of this. And so some sort of short-term CR, I guess, that would still abide the CR that was passed in the House in terms of not funding all the things that the Dems are holding this up over, refunding government-run media and trans operas in South America and so forth. 312-642-5600, turnkey.pro answer line. Do you want a bend here? The FAA Administrator Brian Bedford warns of a, quote, radical reduction if staffing worsens. This is alleviating pressure. This is intended to be short-term in the hopes that the impasse is resolved. But it could get worse more quickly if the impasse is not resolved. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy saying that alleviating pressure on air traffic controllers working without pay. American Airlines told Newsweek that we expect the vast majority of our customers' travel will be unaffected and long-haul international travel will remain as scheduled. As schedule changes are made, we'll proactively reach out to customers who are impacted. And so that's of the kind that you're hearing from the other major carriers as well. But again, the question becomes how much pain and or pressure can political pressure and prospective pain do Republicans want to endure? And it's interesting, of course, because this is always treated as through the prism of Republicans, because whether they're in the majority or not. The other matter is that the president's push to eliminate the filibuster ran into problems with Senate Republicans. There's no deal there. So if you thought the filibuster was going to be eliminated to provide the off-ramp, that is not going to happen. Senate Republicans saying no to Trump after a year of saying yes. And I guess there was some heated exchanges with President Trump, between President Trump and some Senate Republicans, including Lindsey Graham. But there are enough Republicans saying no that the filibuster is not going to be eliminated for the purpose of ending this impasse. In addition to that, of course, you have court holdings that are mandating the payment of SNAP benefits. All of these things, to some extent, being litigated, although on the SNAP benefits, the president seemed pretty amenable from the start. So that's where it's at. And we'll see what the president and Senate Republicans want to do, depending on what Senate Democrats' response ultimately is to some sort of olive branch that was extended by John Thune. Dan Proft, Chicago's Morning Answer.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at TruePowerGenerator.com. That's TruePowerGenerator.com. Plus, 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Call for details. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
Welcome back to Ask Hassellus.
I give up. Where are they?
Who?
Hassellus Mattress employees.
Hassellus Mattress showrooms really are employee-free. Give our mattresses a try with no pushy sales guy.
Don't believe it.
You won't believe our prices either. Beauty Rest, Sealy Posturepedic, and more for way less. Free next-day delivery, too.
Sure. Next you'll say I can get a free adjustable base with my purchase through Monday.
As a matter of fact, yes.
Oh, come on.
Find an employee-free showroom near you at Hassellus.com.
This month, Pure Talk is support.
If you're drowning in debt, you need to do what so many have done. Call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender for a fresh start, debt consolidation, refinance. Today, me, Jordan, 47, married to Jackie, 43, combined income $260,000 a year. They live in a $600,000 home with their 3 kids and called to pay off their credit card debt, high interest rate consumer loans, and 2 401k loans totaling more than $150,000. Team Hochberg loan officer Cindy Piazza helped Jordan and Jackie secure a fresh start debt consolidation refinance, which saved them over $1,000 a month. Let's review. Team Hochberg loan officer Cindy Piazza helped Jordan and Jackie consolidate their debt and eliminate their financial stress with a Team Hochberg fresh start debt consolidation refinancing, saving them over $12,000 a year. Team Hochberg has helped thousands of AM 560 listeners, but they can't help you if you don't call 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. That number again is 855-563-2843. And the website you know and love is 56david.com, NMLS 1124061.
Americans everywhere are on edge. The government shutdown has dragged on, and every day that passes, the markets grow more uncertain. When anxiety grips Wall Street, the first thing that takes the hit is your retirement savings, your IRA, your 401k. Everything you've worked for can suffer a loss of value virtually overnight. And now, with the Fed preparing another rate cut, precious metals are poised for dramatic gains in the coming weeks. That's why so many Americans are calling Advantage Gold at 800-741-GOLD to learn how to roll over a portion of their retirement funds into physical gold and silver. When paper assets crumble under government dysfunction and global tension, precious metals stand firm. Don't wait for the next market shock to erase what you've saved. Call Advantage Gold at 800-741-GOLD. Get your free gold kit now. It'll show you exactly how to secure your IRA or 401k with tangible assets. Call 800-741-4653 now. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call 800-741-GOLD.
This month, Pure Talk is supporting Canines for Warriors, a terrific organization that trains rescue dogs and then pairs them up with combat vets struggling with PTSD. This is why I switched to Pure Talk. Sure, I like the unlimited talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, and you will too. But you will love being in business with a company that shares your values. Dial pound 250, say Micro, and switch to an American wireless company that actually stands for something. Pure Talk.
We've lost touch with where our food comes from. Today, over 85% of grass-fed beef sold in America is imported, hurting our farmers and leaving families disconnected from the source of their food. We started Good Ranchers to make a difference. We partner with local American farms and ranches to deliver 100% American beef, chicken, pork, and wild-caught seafood straight to your door. Visit GoodRanchers.com and use code RANCH40 to get $40 off your first order, plus free meat for an entire year. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered.
AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. By the way, just building on this increasing pressure over the shutdown because air travel is impacted beginning today in major markets. A fracture to the flights, but nonetheless. And in part, this is being blamed on Republicans. It's one of the reasons that Republicans had such a bad night on Tuesday. In addition, according to Trump and supporters, because Republicans didn't tout the good economic news coming out of the Trump administration vociferously enough. Yeah, I don't really know that there's much evidentiary support for those claims. And by the way, there's some contraindicators too. So I know the neo-Marxist Mamdani won in New York City, but over in Nassau County, New York, Republican Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, he cruised to a re-election victory, defeating the Democrat by 12 points. Republicans swept county-wide and comfortably held the county's legislative body in a previously Democrat-leaning area. By the way, Biden won Nassau County in 2020. Trump did win in 2024, but Blakeman, the county executive, people like the fact I took a strong stand on a number of issues, including males in girls' sports. We were the first county in America to ban men participating in girls' sports. hired over 600 law enforcement professionals, 400 cops, 200 corrections officers in the last 3 years. Did that without raising taxes 1 penny in 4 years. We have a comprehensive agreement with ICE, and we're removing criminals from our community. We're named the safest county in America, according to a 2024 U.S. News and World Report. We've also been named the most desirable place to live in New York State, so I think we've got a record of achievement. And he said, I did run with President Trump. I did support President Trump, and I made it very clear that I supported his policies. There's no give there. I think people like the fact I'm someone of principle, that I'm someone that stands up for the same values as President Trump, and then I brought base appeal from moderate Democrats. I've got almost 2/3 of independent voters. I got almost 2/3 of independent voters to vote for me as well. Again, Trump carried Nassau County by 4 points in 2024. Joe Biden won it by double digits in 2020. So, the quality of the local candidates matters. The quality of the record when it comes to Republicans in office, that matters. Incumbents have an advantage, including incumbent Republicans, and being able to run on a record that people think is a pretty good one, and people are fairly content with how the county, at least at the county level in Nassau County, if not the state, the county level, how it's being managed. And so you see a pretty good Republican performance. And also you have a leader of the party there, being the county executive, who's not leading with an apology. Hi, my name is Bruce Blakeman. I'm a Republican. I apologize. No, I stand with Trump on these issues for these reasons. I'm going to make the arguments. We're going to, as we have the political power, we're going to make policy in this direction. It's going to produce these results. Watch and see. And when it produces those results, you say, remember what I told you? Remember what I told you was going to happen? It happened. We're a safer, more prosperous community as a result. Please reelect me and include some of my friends. Pretty simple formula. Glenn in Chicagoland, you're on Chicago's Morning Answer.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. Thanks for taking the call. Through this shutdown, why doesn't Congress have any skin in the game? They continue to get paid. They talk about everybody else and all the problems that are going to happen with air traffic control and people not getting paid and the military not getting paid. Why are they not getting paid? I don't get that. They're the creators of this problem. They should be the first people not to get paid.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Glenn. I mean, I'm all for that. Sort of as a general rule, they're perhaps the least essential workers, although there are constitutionally mandated duties to be carried out to maintain the government. So despite their relative uselessness, they do have some core functions to perform. But I think Florida Senator Rick Scott proposed exactly that. No pay for reduced or no pay for members of Congress during this impasse. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Completely agree. It's like what I've proposed in Illinois for a long time now, ever since I ran. State legislators in Illinois should make no more than the median household income. I mean, I would even go lower. I'd say like the median salary in Illinois, but I'll go median household income. So let's say low 60s, no more than that. It's a part-time job. That's already too generous. No benefits, obviously no pension. And their salaries can only go up by the same amount as the median household income goes up, so that your incentives are completely aligned. You want to increase your pay? Well, then make this a more prosperous place for the people that are paying you. Something like that would be nice. George in Naperville.
Dan, if the SNAP benefits are restored, do you think the recipients will be able to live in a world without trans operas?
That's a great question. Thanks for the call, George. Sarah in Glenview.
Yeah, hi. What do you think of Levin's idea? If blowing up the filibuster doesn't sell, with a lot of senators, and I can understand why. What about suspending the filibuster just for the CR? What do you think of that?
Well, I don't like it, Sarah, because I think it's, like a tactical nuclear strike or the full-on nuclear strike generates basically the same second strike, doesn't it? My point is to say, if you set the precedent that we're going to do it just for the CR, then you have obviously set that precedent for the other side to utilize, and then they're just going to expand it anyway.
Slippery slope kind of a thing.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks for the call, sir. Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary. I think there are, first of all, I know now that air traffic is being impacted. Now it's sort of real to more regular people in this country, but we're still, basically a month into this, and you've got this weekend's inconveniences for some, and maybe myself, which I'm not looking forward to, but I'm not going to lose my mind over it. And I certainly don't want Republicans to cave over it. So continue to make the arguments, continue to explain the dynamics and the respective positions as relentlessly as they propagandize and push their agitprop. Hold the line. That's what I say.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
The national debt is soaring and the dollar is weakening. Rising deficits and market instability are creating a perfect storm of economic uncertainty. In unpredictable times, more people are turning to physical gold and silver, real tangible assets that have protected wealth for centuries, as a way to safeguard their savings and retirement.
And now, with the Fed preparing another rate cut, precious metals are poised for dramatic gains in the coming weeks.
At Advantage Gold, we help you move your IRA or eligible 401k into physical precious metals, tax-free and penalty-free. When you call
800-741-GOLD,
you'll receive a free gold guide packed with real-world strategies to help protect your investments.
Call 800-741-GOLD
or visit AdvantageGold.com.
Call 800-741-4653.
Consult with your financial and tax professionals before making investment decisions.
Call 800-741-GOLD.
Are you tired of tech headaches slowing your business down? Unique Computing Solutions has been the go-to IT team for businesses in Illinois and Northwest Indiana for nearly 30 years. Your systems should be running smoothly, your data secured, and your communications streamlined. Visit our website today at uniquecomputing-solutions.com. That's uniquecomputing-solutions.com. uniquecomputing-solutions.com. Your IT challenges solved.
AM 560. The Answer.
Coming up at 6:36, we're going to talk about that assisted suicide bill that was passed in the veto session last week that Pritzker is going to sign into law. State Representative Bill Howder from Morton, Illinois, is a Republican. He's also a physician. The Illinois assisted suicide law that is coming, we'll discuss at 6:36. Now we check the headline.
Good morning. 48 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer in the AlmostFreeTeeth.com newsroom. Delays on top of cancellations as the nation's airports struggle with fatigued air traffic controllers. Several delays and a handful of cancellations at O'Hare just this morning. American Airlines says it will cancel about 200 of its 6,000 daily departures. United fewer than 200 cancellations through Sunday. That they add that half of passengers on flights canceled today rebooked on other flights within about 4 hours. The family of a Chicago teen who was gunned down last week on the city's near west side, calling for his killer to be caught. Police say 15-year-old John Thomas was shot and killed on Halloween on West Crenshaw. Authorities think the victim was riding his bike to his father's residence to trick-or-treat. No one is in custody. And a West Suburban chiropractor facing felony charges after he's accused of secretly recording nude videos of nearly 200 of his patients, some of those children. 43-year-old David Hansen arrested on Wednesday in Batavia. He's the owner of Hansen Family Chiropractic. The state attorney's office says those recordings were from devices placed in a special infrared room. He has a court date November 10th. Think full mouth dental implants are too expensive? Think again. Not at almostfreeteeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at almostfreeteeth.com. We're checking traffic in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Scott Jennings explains the impact of the shutdown.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said that he is opposing a Senate Republican bill to extend pay to the troops and to some federal workers during the shutdown, all to appease a radical left-wing base. It is pathetic political theater.
The Scott Jennings Show. Weekdays at 1, right before Hugh Hewitt at 2 on AM 560. The Answer.
When I started skiing, I didn't think about setting any records. When I won my first race, I didn't think about how many more I might win. So when I made it to the top of the world, it never crossed my mind to stop. Being the best isn't the same as being your best. There are no shortcuts to the top, so find the people who help get you there. I'm Michaela Schifrin, and that's what Team Stiefel means to me. If you're an advisor or an investor, choose Stiefel, where success meets success.
Stiefel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
Past performance is no indication of future results. Investing involves risk. Consult a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
If you're looking for a watch that makes a statement, Roland's Jewelers in downtown Libertyville has the perfect timepiece for you. Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. Roland's carries my favorite watch brand, Tag Heuer. Tag Heuer is all about precision with a sleek, bold style. And I've got a Tag Heuer watch from my friends at Roland's Jewelers. I love it. They've got a great selection of other fashion-forward watch brands like Bell & Ross, Movado, Tissot, and Michelle, or consider Roland's iconic collection of pre-owned Rolexes. Let Roland's watch specialists help you find the perfect timepiece that fits your style and have their terrific experts show you the Tag Heuer watch that I bought from Roland's. Ask for it by name. Tell them it's Mike Gallagher's watch. Visit Roland's Jewelers in downtown Libertyville or RolandsJewelers.com. That's Roland's, ROLLANDS, RolandsJewelers.com, or call them 847-918-7300. 847-918-7300. Roland's Jewelers, a family-owned jeweler you can trust, just like I do.
Salem News Channel is America's fastest growing conservative TV network.
It's an absolute crazy day.
Home to the largest lineup of free speech champions anywhere, delivering in-depth insight and unapologetic opinion on today's biggest news stories.
Americans aren't going to put up with this anymore.
SNC brings you the news that matters, told with integrity and clarity. Watch Salem News Channel free 24/7 on your television. Stream now on Samsung TV Plus, channel 1177.
Picture this. You're halfway through a DIY car fix and boom, you're missing a part. It's okay, because whatever it is, it's on eBay, and it's guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Sue Aller. Looking good on the Eden, both ways from Lake Cook to Montrose, 15 minutes. The Kennedy inbound from O'Hare to the Burton Interchange is 21 minutes with a stall at Diversey Avenue. On the outbound side, it's 29 minutes. The Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the Old Post Office, 16 minutes. Outbound is 14. There's a crash on the outbound Stevenson at Des Plaines River Bridge. So outbound from Lakeshore to the Tri-State is 16 minutes. Inbound is 20. The Dan Ryan from 95th to Burn Interchange is 17 minutes. Outbound is 11. This report is sponsored by Blindster.com. Kyle started Blindster in 2010 to make quality custom-made blinds affordable to everyone. Traditional window covering retailers are expensive. Blindster's prices are low and their blinds are guaranteed to fit. Blindster.com. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be breezy with clouds giving way to some sunshine, reaching a high of 63. Tonight, expect increasing cloud cover with a low of 43. Tomorrow will be cloudy and cooler with a chance of showers in the morning and rain in the afternoon. By nighttime, there is a possibility of rain transitioning to snow with a high of 48. I'm meteorologist Jason Catarina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Forever Remodeling. Stress-free and high-quality remodeling. View their stunning transformations online at the number 4everremodeling.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, get Get your tickets for Freedom Summit Chicago 2025, featuring Dr. Ben Carson, Scott Jennings, Mike Gallagher, and many more. Get your tickets today at freedomsummitchicago.com.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Wesley Smith of the Discovery Institute, maybe the nation's leading voice against assisted suicide. We've had him on the show many times. Wrote a piece over at National Review after the Illinois General Assembly, in its infinite wisdom, passed an assisted suicide legalization bill during veto session last week that goes to Pritzker's desk, where it will be signed. New York is doing the same thing. Their legislation is sitting on Hochul's desk. That will be signed. When those bills get signed into law, more people will live in jurisdictions that validate some suicides and allow doctors to facilitate such deaths than live in states where assisted suicide remains illegal. The states are nationaling assisted suicide as well, writes Wesley Smith. New York's bill has no residency requirement. Vermont and Oregon did away with theirs. Illinois' residency requirement is so weak that one could become a resident in a day by, say, renting an apartment and registering to vote. This is so disheartening, writes Smith. Suicide is being redefined into a medical treatment, which is odd because legalization is a vote of no confidence in the medical profession's ability to care for people with serious illnesses. That's such a great way to put it. Right. It's a no confidence vote in the medical profession. That's a good way to look at it. He goes on to say, we're no longer an anti-suicide nation. Deploying gooey euphemisms like MAID, medical assistance in dying, just call them MAID, doesn't change the factual nature of what it is that much of liberal society seems to want. And as Canadian journalist Andrew Coyne observed, a society that believes in nothing can offer no argument even against death. A culture that has lost its faith in life cannot comprehend why it should be endured. It seems to me, writes Smith, that for millions of us, getting people dead has a greater emotional hold than ensuring that people receive proper care. What a disturbing observation that is. For more on this legislation in Illinois, please be joined by Republican State Representative, but more important, a medical doctor, Bill Hauter. He is from Morton, Illinois. Representative Hauter, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Hey, I got to read that article. That's exactly what I've been saying. Probably not as eloquent as that, but exactly the words I've been using. We have a culture of death in this state, in this nation. It's really sad, disgusting, and it's hard to battle because I know you have some questions, Dan, but I just want to say,
yeah, go ahead.
You know, it's hard to battle when we're in Springfield. We're battling untruth, and we're battling non-reality. We're battling their truth, and when it's their truth, there's nothing to say. You can't say anything that will shake them from the reality that they live in. That's not truth. And so this is just part of that. When there's no truth, the culture of death succeeds. And we see that with abortion. We see that with this new bill on physician-assisted suicide. And we see it in a lot of ways in the transgender debate. When there's no truth, you can say and be anything you want to be. So there you go. And I'll have to look that article up because that sounds very good.
Yeah, Wesley Smith and National Review, again, we're becoming a suicide nation. Indeed, which is just it's such a sick statement. The legislation in Illinois in particular, I know that it was it opposed, or at least there were concerns raised by the American Medical Society and some of the other professional medical associations.
Yes.
What were those objections?
Well, I mean, they continued the field in medicine, even still, is to oppose physician-assisted suicide because, I mean, ultimately, it's the greatest objection to our oath and our sacred and ancient oath, which is first, do no harm. I mean, come on. this is the worst that you can do. And so doctors still adhere to that, but it's changing, Dan. For sure it's changing. As we churn out of medical schools, those young people who have been indoctrinated in our high schools and our colleges, and then they come into medical school and they are no longer wanting to be physicians. What they want to be is activists with medical licenses. And this is what we're seeing. But still today, the feeling in medicine, and backed by the Illinois State Medical Society, the largest representation of physicians in the state, opposes physician-assisted suicide because there's so many ethical problems with it. And we are partnering with our patients, the patients that we help. I mean, we have addressed this, and we continue to address it with hospice care, with palliative care. It's not like we see the suffering of our patients. We take care of these patients. We live the lives with them. We try to alleviate suffering. And when they want a solution for their pain and their suffering, and their prognosis is very poor, we have hospice care. And if they have a chronic illness or disability and they want to live improved lives, we have palliative care. And so we've dedicated great resources, study, and effort into helping these patients not commit suicide, not have suicide as final answer. So it's not like medicine has ignored this, and we just throw up our hands and just say, I guess we'll just help you commit suicide. We oppose this. The Illinois State Medical Society opposes this. The American Medical Association, which I have problems with, and I don't agree with all of the things that they say, but I definitely agree that they continue to oppose physician-assisted suicide.
Well, it's one of those things where when you make an argument that is completely rooted in sentimentality, as is the argument that these pro-euthanasia politicians make, I mean, there is no limit to that argument. And so what we've seen happen in the real world in places like Western Europe and states in the Pacific Northwest and
Canada.
Canada. Well, that's part of the Western world, technically.
Yeah.
Technically. But what we see, what happens? You go from it's just sort of debilitating, painful cancers and other horrible diseases that I wouldn't wish on anybody. Then all of a sudden, it's psychological conditions. I've lost the will to live. Then all of a sudden, it's not limited to people over the age of 18 or over the age of 21. Then it's pre-teenager or teenagers or preteens, but minors that get access to this as well because they're because they have some sort of mental illness or because they have they've given up the fight. So says some psychiatrist. I mean, there are cases after cases of this happening in places like the Netherlands, in places like Canada, even in places like Oregon.
100%, Dan. 100%. This is exactly they have a strategy, and they've used it over and over again. They use the extreme case. The same thing with abortion. Rape and incest. You don't want a choice for rape and incest, and they use that as a Trojan horse to expand everything that they initially just talked about was very, very empathetic and sympathetic to a very, very niche or rare cause. We saw the same thing in Illinois with medical marijuana. It's just for these people who use it for pain, or there's some issue that they need medical marijuana. And what happens? It expands, and now it's everywhere, and it's recreational, and it's highly available. And this is going to be the same thing. It's not like we don't know what's going to happen. They say, this is only for the last 6 months of life. We have strict controls on it. This is all baloney. This is, they know, we know, they know, we know. I mean, the same old thing. We all know what's going to happen.
Get the camel's nose under the tent, and then we're good. Then we're good to go, right?
Yeah. And the expansion of it, when you initially poll physician-assisted suicide, of course they use a different term, whatever term they want to use to make it sound better. medical aid in dying is the one they tried. We call it exactly what it is: physician-assisted suicide. We already have medical aid in dying. That's hospice care. That's palliative care. They are introducing physician-assisted suicide. When you poll that, and the question is, the last 6 months of life, poor prognosis, cancer, they're suffering. There's very highly people are like, yes, we want this for that. When they actually see where it goes, and that there's a 12-year-old in Canada right now that's being allowed to commit suicide because of mental health issues, that there's a woman in Oregon that has cancer, and the treatment for it is very expensive, and so she's being offered assisted suicide because it's much, much cheaper than the treatment. And that's a whole nother issue we can talk about. And why the disability community.
Let's get rid of the elderly, get rid of the poor. I mean, that's very compassionate.
Yeah. It's the cheapest care. I mean, the cheapest care is no care. You don't think that insurance companies and even eventually the government is going to see that how much money they can save? I mean, the most money is spent on the last 6 months of your life usually, and when you're in you have a chronic illness and you're dwindling or you're deteriorating from that. That's where you spend the most money. What is the cheapest? We see all sorts of insurance company tactics. This will be the ultimate tactic. Those with chronic illnesses, those with disabilities, they're going to be coerced. They're going to be made to feel like they are such a burden on their caregivers, on the state or their insurance company or whatever, that the best option for them is just to commit suicide.
Right. You made the sort of incrementalist approach they take comparison with marijuana, but the real approach or the real comparison with respect to the sanctity of life is abortion. And so you have 80% of people, when you talk about polling, that oppose late-term abortions, partial birth abortions, a baby's born as the result of a botched abortion, and then we have a conversation about that baby's life, as Ralph Northam and others, J.B. Pritzker would probably say in a private moment. But that's the thing. So 80% oppose what's going on, but the death cult on both sides of this demagogues it to say women's choice, right to die, this and that, and it provides an expansion of this death, this administration of death, that is beyond where a supermajority of Americans are, but it goes on unabated in places like Illinois or New York or California anyway.
Yep. Yeah, and they get and the process that they get it by is absolutely ridiculous and an insult to all those who were so, passionate about this not passing. The disability community, the faith community, the medical ethics community, my physician colleagues, many of them, we passionately argued this at the Illinois State Medical Society annual meeting earlier this year, and it had a large majority that it passed. That we as a physician group were opposed to physician-assisted suicide. And all those people were shortchanged any kind of voice in the General Assembly by the way this passed in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., without any warning that this was going to come up. It's just an insult. It's an absolute insult, and it just shows their incompetence that their malevolence when they want to pass such a bill that's so important to so many people, so impactful for the direction of our state, and they just bring it up at 2 a.m. with a little debate and we have some time here waiting for another bill to drop. Let's just pass physician-assisted suicide. What a terrible way to pass law.
Dr. Bill Hauter is a Republican state representative from Illinois' 87th down in Morton, Illinois, a medical doctor, as I said. Dr. Hauter, Representative Hauter, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Always like it talking to you this early in the morning, Dan. I'm already at the hospital.
Yeah, there you go. You're doing your real job. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Very good.
I just found a quiet room here at the hospital.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks so much for your time. Right. And Representative Hauter joined us in the Turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Raj Shah, host of Unleash Your Wealth.
You know, there are a lot of clients and people coming in from the radio into our office saying, I don't want to lose any money. I need to protect the money I have saved over the last 20 or 30 years, where you have strategies where you can structure an income stream where it has an inflation protection so that as inflation, if it continues to go up, your income will go up.
Unleash Your Wealth, Saturday at 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. on AM 560, The Answer.
You okay down there?
I tripped over old china boxes in the basement, and now I'm stuck behind the ping pong table we never use.
I'm coming to the rescue, if I can find you.
You know, if we finished this basement, we could actually enjoy this space.
I think it's time to call Forever Remodeling.
Forever Remodeling turns disaster zones into game rooms, guest bedrooms and bathrooms, home theaters, a custom space just for you. Visit foreverremodeling.com. That's the number 4, everremodeling.com.
President Trump has made some pretty amazing claims since he's taken his seat as president. He's delivering on what he promised. On Inauguration Day, Trump's very first declaration was,
"The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish."
Consider this. Since the election, gold has shot up hundreds of dollars per ounce, shattering all-time record highs. Fox Valley Coins does not pretend to know the future, but they do know that if you're buying or selling gold or silver, they are the place to do it. These are some of the top reasons people choose a dealer. You want a national dealer with a local presence you can deal with face-to-face. You want a large selection, the best prices, and great service. You want to walk in with cash and walk out with the best product. You want to deal with legacy dealers with integrity. Whether buying or selling, or just one valuation, Fox Valley Coins is your answer for choosing a dealer. Visit Fox Valley Coins, 1 light north of I-88 on Route 59 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. FoxValleyCoins.com. Family-owned integrity since 1981.
Our veterans are our heroes. They answered the call to defend our freedom, putting their lives on the line for our nation. But today, thousands of those brave men and women are facing something no hero should ever face: food insecurity. That's where Farm to Veteran comes in. Through the Fulcrum Farm Foundation, this remarkable organization delivers farm-fresh, nutritious food directly to veterans in need through veteran services and organizations. From greenhouse-grown produce to eggs, they're ensuring our heroes have access to the high-quality food they deserve. But Farm to Veteran can't do it alone. They need our help. Your financial contribution directly supports their mission to feed more veterans across their growing network of partner farms nationwide. And there's another way you can make a difference. Join them at their upcoming community events. Visit farmtoveteran.com today. That's farm2veteran.com to donate or learn about events near you. Because those who served our country shouldn't have to wonder where their next meal is coming from. Let's stand with those who stood for us. That's farm2veteran.com.
Networks, streaming services, retail chains, and tech giants are all adding plus to their names. But where did the concept originate? We may be biased, but we think these big wigs found their inspiration for plus at Hassellus Mattress. Hassellus showrooms are employee-free. Give your mattress a try with no pushy sales guy. Plus, our 35 beds from the top 5 brands start at $393. Plus, unbeatable prices on Tempur-Pedic. Plus, free next-day delivery and setup. Plus, free haul-away and disposal of your old mattress. Plus, 60-month interest-free financing on select Tempur-Pedic with approved credit. Plus, a $300 MasterCard gift card with your Tempur-Pedic mattress. Plus, a ruggedly handsome spokesman with a smooth radio voice. Get all this, plus a whole lot more when you shop at Hassellus Mattress. Or maybe we should change our name to Hassellus Plus. Nah. Open 9 to 9. Find an employee-free showroom near you or shop online at Hassellus.com.
Hey, I'm Mike Slater. My dad passed away at the age of 63. It's out of nowhere. Had a stroke. Super hard, obviously, for the whole family, but my dad had life insurance. This is why I have life insurance for my family, for my wife and 4 kids. And the best place to get life insurance is ethos.com, because you can do it in 10 minutes. And there's no medical exam and no blood test, just a few health questions. Get life insurance in 10 minutes so your family is protected. Ethos, E-T-H-O-S, ethos.com/Mike.
At Audion Hearing, our mission is simple: to make better hearing affordable for everyone. We're proud to offer high-quality, rechargeable hearing aids starting at just $98. Clear, comfortable, and ready to use right out of the box. And here's a study worth hearing. Johns Hopkins research shows that wearing hearing aids can reduce your risk of dementia by up to 61%. Join over 1 million happy customers and hear the difference today by going to audionhearing.com. That's AUDIEN hearing.com.
AM 560, The Answer.
Just a postscript on our discussion of assisted suicide. And one of the other things doctors like Bill Howder recognize is that doctors are not God. They don't know everything. They get it wrong. And when you promote life-ending procedures, there's no reversing those. Andrew Dobb, his son Will has Down syndrome. His op-ed over at the Epoch Times. Doctors and experts painted grim pictures of what life would look like for a child born with an extra chromosome. They said our children wouldn't learn, wouldn't walk, wouldn't talk, wouldn't contribute. Families were told that the best and sometimes only option was to institutionalize them, or worse, never give them a chance at all. They classified Down syndrome as a birth defect. They saw a diagnosis instead of a person. They focused on deficits instead of potential, and in doing so, they robbed countless families of the joy of knowing who their children could become. Yet here we are, decades later, watching a new generation of individuals with Down syndrome live, learn, and thrive, not because of what was predicted, not because the diagnosis changed, but because families refused to accept those limits, refused to let their children be defined by that diagnosis, and instead embraced who God created them to be. Once written off as drains on society, children only the rich could afford, people with Down syndrome are graduated from high school and college, are gainfully employed, are excelling in careers, are competing in sports, are getting married, are living full lives, and contributing meaningfully to the communities and families by their very presence. They're proof that the human spirit cannot be defined by a chromosome count. That's on the front end, where still the numbers in America are north of 70% of those who get a Down syndrome diagnosis abort. It's the same principle that applies at the back end, or not necessarily the back end of life. As we know, once assisted suicide is inculcated, it goes from end of life to inconveniences in life at any age. Terrible, terrible marker that Illinois has put down. Coming up at 7:07, what a treat. An opportunity to speak with the legendary comedian and actor Tom Dreesen. That's 7:07. It's now 7 o'clock, AM 560.
All eyes on the sky. Jalozzi, Fox News. Hundreds of flights are canceled across the country today as the FAA looks to ease strain on air traffic controllers as the government shutdown drags on.
The FAA has ordered airlines to reduce the number of flights by 4% starting today, ramping up to 10% next week at the nation's busiest airports, including Atlanta, Denver, Dallas, Orlando, Miami, and San Francisco. The National Air Traffic Controller Association President Nick Daniels says staffing issues are getting worse as they've now missed 2 paychecks and some workers are having trouble paying for gas, food, and childcare.
There was a trainee today that before I just left the office to come here, said, I've been evicted.
United says some regional and domestic flights that do not fly between hubs will be impacted. Delta and American say they anticipate most travel will carry on as scheduled, but they will help schedule changes and offer refunds to those impacted. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
And the Senate likely takes a test vote on a new plan to end the 38-day shutdown today.
Republicans plan a test vote today with changes in spending bill details that could sway some Democratic support to reopen the federal government. A new bill is expected to propose funding the government into January. Others would provide money to operate the Department of Agriculture, the military and construction, and the legislative branch through the next fiscal year. Along with that, an added promise of a vote on subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, would be included. If every Senate Republican backs the measures, only 7 Democrats would need to cross over to reach the 60 votes needed for approval. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Meanwhile, a federal judge ordering the Trump administration Thursday to fund food stamps in full for roughly 42 million low-income Americans. But the Justice Department almost immediately told the court that it is going to appeal that ruling. America's listening to Fox News.
WIND, Chicago.
Good morning, 49 degrees in Chicago and AM 560 The Answer. I'm John Cruz in the AlmostFreeTeeth.com newsroom. Partly cloudy, 55 today. Rain moves in tonight. Snow on Sunday. Close to 80 flights already canceled this morning at O'Hare. Almost 20 flights canceled at Midway. The FAA putting new airspace restrictions starting today. Airlines must cut 10% of flights by next Friday, November 14th, or face a hefty fine per flight. The agency battling fatigued air traffic controllers have now gone 5 weeks without pay. A West Suburban chiropractor facing felony charges after being accused of secretly recording nude videos of over 180 of his patients, some of those young children. 43-year-old David Hansen arrested on Wednesday night in Batavia. He's the owner of Hansen Family Chiropractic. Now, the Kane County State Attorney's Office says the secret recordings were from devices placed in a red light infrared room after a home search. He was also in possession of child sexual abuse videos. Hansen has a court date November 10th. Chicago Mayor Johnson planning to buy and rehab Chicago's downtown Greyhound bus station, but the $50 million proposal came as a surprise to 34th Ward Alderman Bill Conway. He says coming up with that decision behind closed doors shows lack of collaboration. Conway says he learned of the planned purchase earlier this week while reviewing a list of budget items. He added he doesn't have a position on the proposal but will need approval from council. A man arrested in New Mexico, charged with arson and possession of a stolen vehicle connected to a fire Monday night here in Cicero. Now, the fire broke out in a 3-story apartment building in the 1800 block of 51st Avenue. First responders found Jesus Daniel Nunez Campana dead inside after that fire was extinguished, his death caused by a gunshot wound. But his roommate, Naman Alfredo Vasquez, was arrested in New Mexico and will be extradited back to Illinois for that fire and possibly more charges. If you think full mouth dental implants are too expensive, think again. Not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and finally get that finally affordable dream smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. We're checking traffic in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Get your tickets for Freedom Summit Chicago 2025, happening on Saturday, November 8th in Weston, Chicago, Northwest, and Itasca. This year, featuring Dr. Ben Carson, Scott Jennings, Mike Gallagher, along with Dan Proft, Sean Thompson, John Anthony, and many more. This event will sell out fast, so get your tickets today at freedomsummitchicago.com. That's freedomsummitchicago.com. Sponsored in part by True Power Generator Service, Woodland Windows and Doors, and by Moms for Liberty.
The Tunnel to Towers Foundation honors America's heroes. Heroes like Josh Bischoff. Josh began his firefighting career as a volunteer and ultimately became CAL FIRE's Assistant Chief of Tactical Air Operations until tragedy struck and he was killed in a helicopter collision while fighting a California wildfire. He leaves behind his wife Cheryl and their 2 children, Derek and Juliana. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation paid the Bischoff family's mortgage. Support heroes like Josh and their families. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
An official message from Medicare.
Couple more minutes and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you gotta make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money.
Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Hey, I'm Mike Slater. My dad passed away at the age of 63. It's out of nowhere. Had a stroke. Super hard, obviously, for the whole family, but my dad had life insurance. This is why I have life insurance for my family, for my wife and 4 kids. And the best place to get life insurance is ethos.com because you can do it in 10 minutes. And there's no medical exam and no blood test, just a few health questions. Get life insurance in 10 minutes so your family is protected. Ethos, E-T-H-O-S, ethos.com/Mike.
With Progressive, renters can save on protection for the things that make your place yours, even things that don't make sense to everyone.
People always wonder why I don't get rid of my guitar since I never play. But it's like, what if I actually end up taking lessons? Sure, I've had it for 8 years, but if I get rid of it, then what will my New Year's resolution be next January?
Exactly. So bundle your renters and auto and save with Progressive and protect the things that make sense to you. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates and other insurers not available in all states or situations covered subject to policy terms and conditions.
Taking
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Sue Aller. Loaded up right now on 57 inbound just before Halstead Street. A crash takes out the left lane, but the delays, they begin at 103rd Street. The Eden looks good both ways. It's just 15 minutes from Lake Cook to Montrose. The Kennedy inbound from O'Hare to the Burn Interchange is 28 minutes. Outbound is 30. Jam-packed on the northbound Tri-State as you make your way towards the outbound Eisenhower. And the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the old post office is 23 minutes. Outbound is 19. The inbound Stevenson slows down from the Tri-State to Lakeshore, 24 minutes. Outbound is 20. You've got 26 minutes on the Dan Ryan from 95th to the Burn Interchange. And watch out for a stall blocking the right lane on the outbound side right at 18th Street. It's still just 12 minutes, though, from the Burn Interchange to 95th Street. And traffic is a service of Quick Delivery Service. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be breezy with clouds giving way to some sunshine, reaching a high of 63. Tonight, expect increasing cloud cover with a low of 43. Tomorrow will be cloudy and cooler with a chance of showers in the morning and rain in the afternoon. By nighttime, there is a possibility of rain transitioning to snow with a high of 48. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning. Welcome back to Chicago's Morning Answer. Dan Proft here. So a couple weeks ago when the story broke that the city of Harvey was essentially throwing up its hands and enlisting the state to come in and run its finances because it could no longer pay its bills, I sort of made the offhanded remark that I don't even think Tom Dreesen can save Harvey at this point, of course, because Tom Dreesen, famous native son of Harvey, Illinois, great entertainer. And as luck would have it, from the Small World files, Tom and I actually have a mutual friend in common. That's an odd thing for me to think that we have a mutual friend in common, but we do. And my friend sent a clip of that little segment to Tom and connected us, and so we had a chat. And as we were talking, and Tom was gracious with his time and telling stories about Harvey and his perspective on things, and talked a little bit about Hollywood, you know, as you might with somebody who has had a 5-decade-plus career in entertainment. I just said, you know, I think Chicagoans would love to hear from Tom Dreesen, his perspective on his hometown and just more generally on entertainment and culture these days. And so that's how it happened. It's sort of one of those happenstance things, almost like how Tom Dreesen recalls getting hooked up with the chairman of the board, of course, Frank Sinatra.
If you played a word association game with me when I was growing up in Harvey, if you said tall, I'd say short. If you say black, I'd say white. If you said show business, I said Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and Sammy Davis Jr. And the vice president of Harrah's Hotel, a man named Holmes Hendrickson, very powerful guy in those days, saw me, and he was talking to a guy with a cigar. He said, Tommy, come here. I went over and he said, Tommy, this is Mickey Rudin. Well, I recognized the name. That was Sinatra's lawyer. He said, Mickey, this is Tom Dreesen, and I think Tom would make a great opening act for Frank Sinatra. So they called me and they said, a week later, would you like to work 1 week with Frank Sinatra? And I thought, this is going to be fun. And the second night I was with him, we went out to dinner, and he laid down his knife and his fork in the middle of the meal. He said, I like your material, and I like your style. I'd like you to do a few other dates with me if you're interested. And I didn't say, let me check my calendar. I said, yeah. And it turned into 45, 50 cities a year for almost 14 years.
And we're pleased to be joined now by Tom Dreesen. Tom, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
I'm happy to do that, Dan. One thing they left out of that clip, they edited out, but he said to me, Mickey Rudin, Frank Sinatra's lawyer, was being facetious, and he winked at the vice president of Harrah's Hotel, and he said, hey, kid, if I gave you a week with Frank, would you want more than $50,000? I said, Mr. Rudin, put it this way, if you gave me a week with Frank, would you want more than $50,000?
Yeah, right, exactly.
He started laughing. He said, hey, I like this kid. And that whenever people say, how did you get a job with Frank? I said, from being glib at the right time. That sort of hooked me up. And it was a fantastic run. And I miss the guy every day. It was so exciting touring with him, you know.
People can only imagine, which is why it's so fun to hear you tell stories about it. By the way, I should mention, too, stories in his autobiography, Tom Dreesen's I'm talking about, Still Standing, my journey from streets and saloons to the stage and Sinatra. TomDreesen.com is the website. You can order the book there. But just even going back before Sinatra, your sort of improbable career from, the streets and saloons, but from Harvey, Illinois, as a young man to Hollywood and beyond. I mean, how did it happen?
I never thought I'd be in show business. It was the furthest thought in my mind, show business. I just never thought I would. And I was wandering aimlessly. I had a wife and 3 kids. I had just gotten out of the service. I spent 4 years in the military, and I joined a civic group called the JCs. In those days, they're very prominent around the United States. And I wrote a drug. The JCs attacked the problems of the community in 50 states and in 22 foreign countries. And in doing so, there was they had leadership training programs, how to speak in front of an audience, how to conduct meetings, Robert's Rules of Order, how to serve on committees, how to chair committees. And I was learning all these things. And one of the problems in our community was that our young kids were using drugs, as in today. So I wrote a drug education program teaching 8th graders the ills of drug abuse with humor. It's a concept I had to get the kids laughing and play some records and then afterward, once you got them relaxed, plant the seeds of the ills of drug abuse and the specific drugs that were being used in our community. Helping me with that project was a young black man who just graduated from Norfolk State College, and E.I. DuPont recruited him into Chicago as a marketing rep. And we went into the classrooms, and the program became very, very successful. JCs use it as a model program and through their publications in 50 states and in 22 foreign countries. And it became very popular. And we got over right away because the children were integrated. It was black and white in Harvey. And so Tim and I were two young guys and having a lot of fun. One day, a little 8th grade girl in Harvey said, and her name is Vicky Sarufka. I still remember her. She's a friend. She was in 8th grade at the time. She was leaving the classroom and she said, "You guys are funny. You ought to become a comedy team." And the thought of a black-white comedy team intrigued us because no one had ever done that before. So we started writing material, and we became America's first black and white comedy team. And history shows we were the last. In those days, there weren't any comedy clubs in America. So we had to work what they call the Chitlin Circuit, black-owned, black-operated nightclubs. Like in Chicago, the High Chaparral, the Burning Spear, the Cotton Club, Guys and Gals Lounge, and all around the country, black-owned, black-operated nightclubs, as well as white nightclubs as well, the Playboy Circuit and stuff. So we stayed together 6 years, and then the team split up, and, the rest is history. Tim Reed went on to become Venus Flytrap on WKRP Cincinnati. He was on a show called Sister Sister. He was on several sitcoms. We're still the best of friends today, and his children call me Uncle Tom. How about that?
It's cool. And you guys did a book about your time together as a comedy team too, didn't you?
Yeah, it was called Tim and Tom, an American classic in black and white. And it was about that era, that time. Think of the backdrop. In 1969, Tim Reed and I went on stage for the first time. There weren't any comedy clubs in America, as I mentioned. But America was in turmoil. There were race riots all over the United States. In fact, Harvey had one of the biggest race riots in the country. And not African Americans feeling disenfranchised from the system were rioting. And then also students were protesting the Vietnam War all over the country. America was in turmoil. And so, we went anywhere there was racial tension, we would go, high schools, colleges. We did 11 prisons in 1 year. We did the county jail in Chicago on 26 in California 3 times. We didn't preach. We just were making people laugh. And one of the things that I will take to my grave, as well as Tim and I talk about this often, I can't tell you how many times wherever we went in America, at some point, a young black kid would come up and say, I got a white friend that I really like a lot, but if I reach out to him, the brothers are going to, call me names and stuff. But after watching you and Tim, I'm going to reach out to my white friend. Then a white kid would come up and say, I got a black friend that I kind of like a lot, and we get along good, but the white guy's going to call me names if I start running with my black friend. But because of you and Tim, watching you and Tim today, I'm gonna reach out to my black friend, because in those days you didn't see a black guy and a white guy walking down the street together, let alone on a stage together.
Yeah, I mean it's really an indelible mark. I mean, you guys predate like Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor doing artistic work together.
Absolutely, and one of the routines Tim and I would do in a nightclub, where we did a routine where Tim was teaching me how to be black. Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor did that same routine in a movie. Like 15 years later,
Stir
everybody
crazy.
knew that was sure, exactly, yeah. So we again, I never thought I'd be in show business, and then that led me on to, after the team split up, onto the Tonight Show, and then the rest is history. I've had a wonderful career.
Well, that's got to be, a source of great pride for both of you to be ahead of the learning curve there, and to be a constructive influencers on positive race relations, which frankly we still struggle with today.
It's interesting. Everywhere you'd go in America today, people will say, we need better race relations. We need better race relations in America. You know what people were saying in 1969? We need today in America, we need better race relations.
Yeah, right. Right.
Tim and I were having a race relation. That's what they saw us on stage. We were on stage relating to one another, making people laugh. We were having a relationship that America wasn't having. Our book, David Letterman, when he read the manuscript, he told me, he said, you should call your book Before Your Time.
Yeah, right.
Because you were before your time. Well, we said it.
It's one of those things where sometimes the arts and sports are ahead of culture. Sometimes they're just reflective of culture. Sometimes they're ahead of culture. I mean, you think of like Hoskins at UTEP fielding an all-black starting five in the NCAA championship game against Adolph Thrupp Kentucky Wildcats, and that was a sort of a seminal moment in sports. Obviously, Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier is another one that predates that by almost 2 decades. But I mean, those sorts of moments where the arts and entertainment, including sports, really do help to advance the flag of American values, which is people getting along regardless of their backgrounds.
No question about it. And Frank Sinatra's relationship with Sammy Davis Jr. way back in the day, when black people would be performing in Las Vegas in a hotel, but they couldn't stay in that hotel. They had to stay, Sammy used to call it, they said we had to stay in Color Town. And then Frank Sinatra went to the owners and said, if Sammy can't stay in this hotel, then I can't stay in this hotel, and I won't perform here. And that changed the whole, Quincy Jones and Count Basie have always given Frank Sinatra credit for that.
Just going back to your youth in Harvey, and I know you still maintain a connection to it up until recently, even. But what was that like, and what do you have perspective on what Harvey and sort of South suburban Cook County, had become once you were gone and onto your career?
Well, let me describe Harvey when I was growing up. It was a thriving metropolis with steel mills and factories, all kinds of industry. We had Ingalls and Shepherd, Alice Chalmer, Buda Corporation, Whiting Corporation, Perfection Gear, Allied Steel, all these, business. They made everything, these factories made everything from clutch plates to crankshafts. And it was a thriving metropolis. The main drag, 154th Street, for like 7 blocks, there was businesses, one right next door to the other. There were Woolworth and J.C. Penney's, Eagle Store, grocery stores, bakeries, bowling alleys. We had 2 different bowling alleys. We had 3 movie theaters. Harvey was a thriving metropolis. And because of the industry we had there, people worked in Harvey, shopped in Harvey, and banked in Harvey. And it was very, it's a wonderful place to grow up. And as you know, today they cannot survive financially, and they've now appealed to the state to try to come and bail them out.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a sad trajectory, and it's something that's happened not just to Harvey, but to that whole region in which you grew up. I mean, you're the pride of Thornton Township High School too, I should mention. So, you spent a good deal of time there, and I think there's a lot of people that have recall to that time or shortly thereafter when you were growing up, and can't believe what's happened to bigger parts of the metropolitan region in Chicago, just as we see a lot of metropolitan areas in this country sort of disintegrating before our very eyes.
I go back, ironically, when I was a little boy selling newspapers, we had 8 kids. We actually lived in a shack. We were very poor. There was 4 boys and 4 girls. A rat-infested, roach-infested shack. If a window broke, you stuck a rag in it. If you got holes in your shoes, you put cardboard in it. So I shined shoes in taverns. I set pins in bowling alleys. I caddied in the summertime. I sold newspapers on the corner, all to help feed my brothers and sisters, and none of this do I regret. There was a mantra in Harvey when I was growing up that you only deserve in life what you work for. That was in all the communities. You only deserve in life what you work for. And so as a little boy, I had my shoe shine box and I went out and I didn't think anything of it. None of this do I regret, by the way. I consider that one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, to be able to do that. But one of the corners I sold newspapers on was 155th Street in Harvey. And one day while I was selling newspapers, all the horns were blowing and cars were coming from everywhere. And I said to one of the elders, "What's going on?" They said, "Tom, it's Lou Boudreau Day." I said, "Lou Boudreau?" They said, "Tom, Lou Boudreau, he went to Thornton High School, took him down to the state championship 3 years in a row as a captain of the basketball team, and they won the state championship basketball. And Lou Boudreau, and he went on to University of Illinois, where he was captain of their teams, basketball and baseball. Then he went to the Cleveland Indians, and he played shortstop. And at age 24, he was a player-manager, the youngest player-manager in baseball, and they won the World Series. And we're honoring him here today. On that corner of 155th Street was the Elks Club, and Lou Boudreau came in there with all of these celebrities. And then they came out, and I quick sold my newspapers. I went down there, and I watched this man from Harvey, Illinois, who was famous. And he left there, and all the people were cheering. And I walked home that day as a little boy, and I began to fantasize. I said, wow, somebody from Harvey is famous. And like little boys do, I was thinking maybe one day they'll have a parade for me, the band, and I'm fantasizing all that stuff. Mm-hmm. August 22nd, 1992, I went back to Harvey, Illinois, and that street corner where I had seen Lou Boudreau and all that 155th Street where I sold newspapers, they named that Dreesen Street. And the man who introduced me to the crowd was Lou Boudreau.
Wow, I've talked about full circle. Interesting.
Full circle.
Wow.
Yeah, and so that my pride in Harvey, it goes way back then. So I go back to Harvey all the time when I can. I've gone back to the high school, Thornton, and I've given motivation talks to the students because I do that for corporate America and I do it at universities and stuff on 4 subjects. I talk about perception, visualization, self-talk, and develop a sense of humor, and I elaborate on those 4 points. And I talk to the students there, and I enjoy doing that. And to get to one of the problems in Harvey, and you and I had this discussion the other day, and that's when you asked me to come on and talk about it. When Mayor Clark first became mayor, I think it was in 2019 of Harvey, a nice man, he contacted me and he said, "I'd like to talk to you about some of the problems we're having in Harvey and get some of your thoughts on that." And I said, sure. And I was going to be in Chicago doing some shows. And so I flew in and we were going to meet at Gibson's and have lunch. And I thought it was just going to be him and I. And he came with the chief of police, the fire chief. He came with some members of the city council, members of his staff. And so we all sat down and had lunch. And, he asked me for some ideas. And I said, here's an idea I'm going to throw out to you. And let me finish because I know you're going to all wrinkle your noses and poo-poo this idea before I even get started. But let me explain what I'm thinking about. Harvey needs industry. As I talked to you earlier, Dan, and told you about Ingalls and Shepherd, Alice Chalmer, Buda, Viking Corporation, Perfection Gear, Allied Steel. It needs industry in there to bring in the tax base and put people back to work. I said, President Trump, that was his first election. I said, he's being accused oftentimes of being a racist. I said, I don't believe he is a racist. I said, but here's a chance for you to find out. Suppose I can get to President Trump and I can say, the town I grew up in needs your expertise. Can you help bring businesses into Harvey, Illinois? And it's a win-win situation for Harvey. And they're already going, there's shifting in the chairs. And
yeah, I bet.
And I'm laughing, but I said, here's a win-win situation. Say he doesn't do it. Say he ignores us and doesn't even comment. Well, then you rest your case. You think he's a racist. I don't. But what if he does? What if he does come there? And what if he can give you ideas and help bring industry to Harvey? Then it's a win-win situation. Well, nobody liked the idea, needless to say. But I really believe that might have been the answer to the problem. I really believe that that's what Harvey needs. It needs industry. It needs, it went from 36,000 or 37,000 people to now 18,000 people. And they're good people in Harvey. The students at Thornton High School, wonderful. The teachers, and I when I go back, I'm so proud of them.
You still get a good response from the kids when you go back and talk?
Yeah, yes. And I'll tell you something interesting. Years ago, when Tim and I were lecturing on drugs to grade school children, when we'd go into the classrooms in those days, it would take you 10 to 15 minutes to quiet the students down. The students were like taking control of the classrooms. That's not the case anymore. At Thornton High School, they've got good leadership there, and they tell the students, we came here to teach, and you came here to learn. And if you disrupt that process, you're gone. In 1 year, they had, way back in the day, they had 32 suspensions from the school. And the following year, they had 3, because the teachers took over and said, we're here to teach, and you're here to learn. And so when I go back, there's great pride in the high school and their athletic skills, as well as their academic skills. So, the students are very attentive and ask me a lot of questions because I'm one of them. I grew up in Harvey in a shack, as I told you, very poor, raggedy poor. And I put all that aside and I teach them that you're not victims. And I give an analogy. I talk to the seniors and I say, I'm not going to give you a biology lesson, but when the male and the female make love, from the male comes 5 million seeds. Did you know that? 2.5 million die instantly. The other millions die along the way. And soon there's only 100,000 seeds left. And then later there's 50,000. Pretty soon there's only 10 seeds left. And there's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you. You. Don't ever tell me you're a victim. Don't ever tell me you didn't ask to be here. You fought to be here. You were born a winner. You were born a victor.
That's a pretty interesting sort of combination of sex ed and inspirational sort of motivational agency type of advocacy. I like it. That's pretty good. I can see why they respond to that. I think it's just what you said. It's just the simplicity of it is elegant, but it really does seem lost. And I'm not just limiting this to Harvey, of course. The idea that you're entitled to nothing other than what you work to get. That just seems like something that is a controversial statement these days. That was the end of part 1 of my interview with Tom Dreesen. You can get the full uninterrupted interview later today on morninganswerchicago.com, but we'll have part 2 pick up right there after the statement I made about Dreesen's biology / motivational practicum there at Thornton Township High School. We'll pick it up there at the top of the 8 o'clock hour. But coming up at 7:37, we'll be talking to Leo Leibowitz from Tablet Magazine.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
In a shocking new 5-part series from Kevin Sorbo, Prescription to Kill reveals a lethal FDA cover-up.
Americans have witnessed a dramatic rise in mass killings at a school, a house of worship, a crowded theater, a packed concert, leaving behind a trail of death and destruction. But what's behind this sudden surge of lethal violence? One determined researcher cracked open the FDA vault, exposing for the first time secret files linking prescription drugs to mass shootings and infamous murders.
There is a reason that we are the leader in unprovoked mass murder in this country, and it's our over-prescription of psychiatric drugs. There's no doubt about it.
In Prescription to Kill, we investigate the hidden connection between the pharmaceutical industry and America's culture of violence.
What their doctor doesn't know could kill you. Discover the truth that could save many lives. Don't miss Prescription to Kill. Watch it now on salemnow.com. That's salemnow.com.
This month, Pure Talk is supporting Canines for Warriors, a terrific organization that trains rescue dogs and then pairs them up with combat vets struggling with PTSD. This is why I switched to Pure Talk. Sure, I like the unlimited talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, and you will too. But you will love being in business with a company that shares your values. Dial pound 250, say Micro, and switch to an American wireless company that actually stands for something. Pure Talk.
We've lost touch with where our food comes from. Today, over 85% of grass-fed beef sold in America is imported, hurting our farmers and leaving families disconnected from the source of their food. We started Good Ranchers to make a difference. We partner with local American farms and ranches to deliver 100% American beef, chicken, pork, and wild-caught seafood straight to your door. Visit GoodRanchers.com and use code RANCH40 to get $40 off your first order, plus free meat for an entire year. GoodRanchers.com, American meat delivered.
It's news, opinion, and insight at the speed of your life. Streaming at 560theanswer.com on the AM 560 mobile app, or tell your smart speaker to play The Answer Chicago.
Good morning, 51 degrees in Chicago on AM 560 The Answer. I'm John Cruz in the Team Hochberg newsroom. A light jacket out the door, partly cloudy and 58 today. Rain tonight, snow on Sunday. A federal judge issuing a sweeping injunction that places more permanent restrictions on the use of force by ICE agents here in Chicago. That order limiting agents' use of tear gas and other riot control weapons. DHS says it will appeal. More protests today in front of a Chicago daycare are planned, where a teacher was arrested by ICE agents in front of young children. Witnesses say the teacher was chased inside that daycare center despite the teacher telling them she had documentation. Mayor Johnson joining the movement to denounce the arrest. And less than 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, but there are fresh worries about bird flu. Within the last month, 66 flocks have been infected, so that's 3.5 million fewer turkeys. And yes, that means more at the register. Wholesale turkey prices up 75% the last year. To fight this, retailers like Walmart lowering the cost of its Thanksgiving meal bundle by 25% this year. News, a service of Team Hochberg. They've helped thousands of AM 560 listeners with the best rates and service. Let Team Hochberg help you by visiting 56david.com or call 855-563-2843. That's 56david.com. Lower.com, equal housing lender, NMLS 1124061. A check of your roads coming up in 2 minutes on AM 560 The Answer.
Mike Gallagher sees the double standard working again.
They think they can call all of us fascists and Hitlers and Nazis all day long. They can get violent. They can do whatever they want to do. Trump has some fun with an AI video, and they melt down like the Wicked Witch of the West getting a bucket of water dumped on her.
The Mike Gallagher Show, weekdays at 9 on AM 560. The Answer. Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage.
If you or someone you love are getting high quotes for dental implants, visit almostfreeteeth.com today. With a medical PPO insurance plan, it's possible to save 90% off on average to be able to smile again. Check if you qualify now at almostfreeteeth.com.
This is Ed Morrissey of HotAir.com for Town Hall. It's the end of an era in American politics. Vice President Dick Cheney spent 5 decades as a leader in our country, as a member of the House, and official in 3 different administrations. Cheney reinvented the office of Vice President with the support of President George W. Bush. He acted as a master strategist for the War on Terror, promoted the effort to export liberty as a forward defense strategy, and helped ensure that the U.S. did not suffer another devastating attack in the years after 9/11. Cheney charted his own course and became a lightning rod for criticism from both the left and the right. No man serves his country for as long as he did without attracting critics and opponents. We have plenty of time to assess his legacy. However, we should remember and celebrate the many years that Cheney devoted to our nation and his tireless work on our behalf. Rest in peace, Mr. Vice President, and thank you. I'm Ed Morrissey.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6745. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6745. That's 800-575-6745. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Progressive Insurance. See why over 43 million drivers trust Progressive to stay protected on the road. See for yourself at Progressive.com.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Sue Aller. Completely jammed on the inbound Dan Ryan. 2 right lanes are closed right at 18th Street. So it's 26 minutes from 95th to the Byrne Interchange. Outbound is 11. Northbound Lakeshore Drive, hitting those brakes approaching Hollywood Avenue. Inbound Stevenson from the Tri-State to Lakeshore is 26 minutes. Outbound is 18. Stop and go delays on the northbound Tri-State as you make your way towards the outbound Eisenhower. And the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the old post office is 25 minutes. Outbound is 17. The Kennedy inbound from O'Hare to the Byrne Interchange, 29 minutes. Outbound is 35. This report is sponsored by Straight Talk Wireless. Don't let data limits hold you back from being the gift master in the family group chat. Switch to Straight Talk Wireless and get real unlimited data on Verizon's 5G network. Straight Talk, available at straighttalk.com or Walmart. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be breezy with clouds giving way to some sunshine, reaching a high of 63. Tonight, expect increasing cloudiness with a low of 43. Tomorrow will be cloudy and cooler with a chance of showers in the morning, followed by some rain in the afternoon, and rain mixing with snow at night. Temperatures will peak at 48 degrees. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios.
If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Revisiting a topic that we covered a bit earlier this morning and this week. And it's okay to talk about now because Megyn Kelly said so. We got chastised by Megyn Kelly after Tuesday's election for talking about Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes and Mark Levin's reaction and Steve Bannon's reaction to Mark Levin's reaction and all of this business of people that present themselves as conservatives trafficking anti-Semitism or otherwise enabling those who do. But now Megyn Kelly interviewed Tucker Carlson on her show, so it's okay to talk about. I don't know, to borrow a line of phraseology from Tucker Carlson, I don't know if there's anything that I despise more in terms of the conservative movement than our inability to resist celebrity. Because it so often leads us astray. It dilutes the standards by which we could otherwise hold ourselves. So Megyn Kelly challenged Tucker, saying, the issue is not so much that you can have controversial people on your show, even detestable people. The real criticism that you're facing is the way that you treat those detestable people like Nick Fuentes that you have on your show. And so how do you respond to that?
So the main pushback has been when you had Jeffrey Dahmer or the Ku Klux Klan, or et cetera, these journalists went after them, exposed the terrible things. And Nick Fuentes has said a long list of very vile things.
Big time, including attacking my dad, which was the most vile of all, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I personally have watched videos of him questioning the Holocaust, likening it to baking cookies in the oven, and there's no way you could have gotten to 6 million, seems to be his theory. He seems to think that we've way overstated the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust. He's ripped on poor Usha Vance in the most offensive terms, which I mean, so what do you say to those people? Say, why didn't you raise any of that?
You know, do your own interview the way that you want to do it. You're not my editor. Buzz off. I mean, I don't know. You want to go yell at Nick Fuentes? I'll give you his cell. Call him and go sit and yell at him and feel virtuous or whatever. That's up to you. I got the same thing with Putin. Why aren't you yelling at him? Okay, why? So I can show that I'm a good person? I care about what my wife thinks, my children think, and God thinks, and that's it. I don't need to prove that I'm a good person to you. You may think I'm a terrible person. Okay, I'm just doing my thing, which is I want to understand what people think, and I'm committed to that, and if you don't like it, don't watch. That's my view. Yep. But that doesn't mean that I share the views. I'm not telling Nazi jokes, obviously, or Holocaust jokes. I mean, please.
It's interesting that he suggests that people suggesting he challenge some of the subjects he has on his show are just wanting to virtue signal. He does that by virtue signaling. Did you catch that? Rather ironic. That's not what we're saying. Did somebody say, I want you to yell at Nick Fuentes or Tucker Carlson or Daryl Cooper or Vlad Putin or Terrell Cooper or whoever, the Iranian foreign minister? No. I think Carl Trueman captures it pretty well in his piece over at firstthings.com. The gig media economy favors pundits who are prepared to transgress boundaries. Their exchange, he's talking about Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, had no real intellectual substance. The two men commiserated with each other over how they had been victimized by establishment conspiracies, and Carlson avoided anything approaching a question that might have challenged Fuentes' well-documented views on Jews and on Hitler. Indeed, even Fuentes' claim to be a fan of Stalin merited no exploration. The interview was all very therapeutic and hardly a replay of Chomsky versus Foucault, yet it also revealed how some on the right are indulging in the same critical theoretical games as those on the left. So it was sort of a pox on both their houses piece that Truman wrote at First Things about identitarianism, really. Because that's what it is, and that's what I called it earlier in the week when we discussed this. And the point about Stalin, too, I raised that. I played that clip. He remembers December 18th as Nick Fuentes as Stalin's birthday. I think that's his birthday, remembering from the clip, not because I have Stalin's birthday memorized. And then he was questioned why, and he said, well, I'm a big fan. And Tucker just sort of set that aside. Well, we'll get to that later. Never did. That would seem to me like a stop moment. No, explore this. And by the way, I want to understand how people think. It may be useful, and this was the Heritage Foundation president, Kevin Roberts' sort of posture at their town hall within the Heritage Foundation to take where some took him to task over the video he posted that he since sort of recanted, at least in part. But the point was that he made is if you want to try to understand like why Nick Fuentes has a significant following online of young men, and we have to understand this as a concern, and we have to do something to address this concern. We have to make a substantive conservative appeal to those same demographics so they understand the difference in terms of what conservatism is versus what Nick Fuentes is peddling. Okay. But that's not what happened with Tucker and Fuentes. I mean, just describing what is. He also said something, just going back to the Truman piece, the philosophical for a second. He talks about the anti-humanist nature of this identitarianism. Approaches that make truth a matter of taste, something with no transcendent binding content. Carlson's interview with Fuentes is a case in point. Its purpose was not denotative, driven by a desire to point out truth. It was connotative, the purpose of creating a transgressive and iconoclastic vibe for the audience. Hence, Carlson's care not to challenge his guest about any of his views that had made him famous in the first place. And that vibe appeals to a fan base made of young men, not surprisingly, in an era when that class has been so consistently maligned. The underlying problem, writes Truman, is not anti-Semitism. It's the anti-humanism that pervades our culture and manifests itself most dramatically in racial identity politics. And he makes the point, critics of Carlson, who have themselves previously denounced opponents of critical race theory as racist or used the preferred pronouns of male killers who happen to identify as women. In other words, critics who have themselves assumed key aspects of the nihilistic world of critical theory might perhaps pause for a moment to ask if they themselves, and not ordinary Christians in the pew, are the ones really complicit in creating the cultural conditions that have made the likes of Carlson and Fuentes both possible, plausible, and popular. Good read. Just on the practical, a good piece by Joe Sternberg over at the Heritage Foundation. Practical in terms of what the Republican Party should do here. He goes to German history, to Sternberg, with a applicable example. Franz Joseph Strauss, none to the right of us principle. This is the 80s in Germany, not the 30s. A major test came in the 1980s amid growing popular discontent over immigration and foreign policy. Sound familiar? A clutch of disaffected Christian social union members splintered off. This is the Strauss Party. It drifted closer to various neo-Nazi ideologues and formed a party called Republicans. They racked up some electoral wins and at their high watermark received 7% of the vote in the 89 European Parliament elections in West Germany. This splinter group's rise led Strauss to articulate formally a principle that had long motivated the Christian Democrats. There must be no democratically legitimate party to the right of the Christian Democrats, Christian Social Union. He meant that on any policy debate, immigration restrictions, social matters, foreign policy, economics, the Christian Democrats should create room for politicians and voters to espouse the most conservative position. This insight was that conservatives must never force voters to elect radical parties to achieve legitimate policy goals. So crowd out the fringe by clearly articulating a policy rooted in proper conservative thought. And it worked. It worked until Angela Merkel came to town and diluted the party by moving it to the left and opening the borders. So, his comment, Sternberg's, on what Kevin Roberts did at Heritage Foundation before he at least partially walked back some of his comments. Strauss thought you should never force voters to elect ideological extremists to get conservative policy. Roberts' tolerant approach toward the fringe right would achieve exactly the opposite. American voters would have to stomach Fuentes to get border security or tax reform. And that's not what we want to do. So there's the philosophical and the practical, and of course the two are connected, as it's best when they are. For more on all of this, we're pleased to be joined by Leo Leibovitz, editor-at-large for Tablet, host of the Rootless podcast as well. Leo, thanks for joining us and your patience with me. I appreciate it.
A pleasure as always. It's fascinating.
Isn't it? This is just good work, and you've written a topic on this as well over at First Things, no less, entitled False Patriots, that tackles some of these same people and some of the same dynamics that Truman and Sternberg came at from different points of view. But I mean, your distillation, including what you heard Tucker say, is say, look, if you don't like the way I interview the Nick Fuenteses of the world, do your own interview, and people can make their own choices.
Yeah, I think it's profoundly idiotic. Look, Carl Truman, who I'm glad you cited, is truly one of the smartest writers and thinkers we have. I'm just a dumb American. I don't know what's in Tucker Carlson's heart. I do know what he repeatedly puts. What he repeatedly puts on screen. If you don't have the time of day for the senator from Texas, but you sit there for fawning interviews with Vladimir Putin and President Pezeshkian of Iran, if you walk around the streets of Moscow and saying, hey, look how much better this is than any American city, if you sit there in the White House with J.D. Vance and say, hey, well, I think President Trump made a mistake. We should really sort of like sidle up and coddle the Iranians. I don't care if your pronouns are conservative Republican. You are an Obama Democrat through and through. And I'm also sorry, you're kind of an anti-American jerk. And I don't think anyone should have any patience for that.
The claims that Tucker has made and others, but he persisted in that Megyn Kelly interview, implicitly calling what Netanyahu and the IDF did in the war in Gaza genocide. And he cites this bombing of a Catholic church and suggests that there was no apology, that the implication is that it was intentional, and there's just a complete disregard for non-Jewish life by that government. I just want you, I mean, I responded to it, but I want to get your response as well, because I don't think the Israeli state or any politician, Netanyahu, Trump, anybody, is beyond reproach from a policy perspective. And if you want to say what the IDF was doing was genocide, I don't think that's necessarily anti-Semitic. I think it's without foundation. I don't think you can credibly make that claim based on the evidence. But I mean, you can say it, this is sort of what people like Tucker have been doing, which is they take an incident that was unfortunate, that does deserve some sort of official explanation that is supported by the evidence, and then they expand that out to have this sort of cosmic meaning or cosmic implication in terms of what these politicians or the state of Israel in this case is doing.
Dan, that's I think exactly right. Look, when you're going to fight a war, especially a war in such like dense built urban territory like the Gaza Strip, you're going to hit some targets, unfortunately, that you don't intend to hit. And the Israeli government apologized right away. But it's exactly as you said, it didn't even matter because Tucker Carlson had previously made up all sorts of canards and lies, including arguing repeatedly and having guests who argued that the violent Israeli settlers have burnt some church in the West Bank, which, 3 or 4 days later turned out to have been a complete invention. But here's what I think is really, really, really important for people to understand. Look, Jews are 2% of the American population. To be perfectly honest, we don't really matter. This attack is not an attack on Jews. It's an attack very, very clearly, and I think orchestrated in a very clever way, on evangelical Christians. Because if you're Tucker Carlson and you're trying to sort of like break the coalition that allowed Donald Trump to become president because you want to take over the Republican Party and turn it into something different, the first thing that you do is attack the most loyal voting bloc to the Republican Party, which is evangelical Christians. And the way you do it is by saying, hey, look, the Jews are attacking Christian churches, therefore you can't support Israel. Therefore, we have to start all this like nonsense about churches and attacks in the Middle East, et cetera, as if Israeli army policy is on the top 10 or even top 20 list that normal American conservative voters care about. This is just an op, and sadly, it's working very well. Tucker has had someone talk about this issue on his show literally every other or every third show that he's done for the past 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know if this is just he's a provocateur and he is, a bit iconoclastic such that when people criticize him or say you can't do this, well, now I'm going to do it 10x. He's sort of has that sort of disposition, and it's mainly that, or it's something that is sort of more nefarious and considered like some plot to take over the Republican Party. I mean, I don't want to get into that sort of theorizing either because I don't know, but it's hard to explain. And this is why I think so many people, including Mark Levin, who said it over the weekend and being critical of Trump, is like, they're still trying to say, like, what happened to you? I don't really understand what you're intending to do with this. And I mean, for a guy as smart as Tucker Carlson, his defenses for things like softball interviews with Nick Fuentes are pretty weak tea.
It's not just his defenses, and I should be very clear. I sort of opened my piece in First Things by admitting I used to like Tucker a lot, both as a media personality and kind of, personally. I went on his show.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely no problem. I have no idea what goes on through his mind, and I don't think it's necessarily useful to try and ascertain, well, why is he doing this? What is the reason? The only thing that you should be doing is actually looking at what this man repeatedly says and does. And what this man repeatedly says and does is put out piece after piece, interview after interview, that does whatever it can to undermine President Trump's agenda and to present America in very much the same light as the woke left presents it, as a sort of nefarious, oppressive place. And that's really all you need to know about Tucker Carlson. You mentioned Daryl Cooper before. would any serious Republican or conservative person in their right mind 3 months before a critical election invite some crackpot, quote-unquote, historian to argue that Hitler was the good guy of World War II and Churchill was the bad guy? I mean, it's not just, I failed to ask the right question. Hey, do your own interview. It's like, why do you keep on making these choices? Why is it always Daryl Cooper and the president of Iran and Vladimir Putin and Nick Fuentes? Dude, your entire lineup is just that. You are telling us who you are and what you believe by the guests and the opinions that you keep on promoting. And here's the thing. I don't care at all about the sort of anti-Semitism thing. I care very much about the anti-Americanism.
Liel Leibovitz, editor-at-large for Tablet Magazine, host of the Rootless podcast as well. Liel, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
And Liel joined us on the Turnkey.Provincial line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Why would you take your precious metal collections to some fly-by-night roadshow that rolls into town once a year? The only thing you need to do is follow the road to Fox Valley Coins and show your gold or silver to Marlin and the team. Gold is at an all-time historical high, so don't keep sitting on your coin hoards or old jewelry that you've been saving to sell when the time is right. The time is right now. Prices have never been better on most collector and gold coins. Fox Valley Coins in Naperville is trying to keep up with demand. So they're paying the most ever on not only most gold coins in bars, but also those old coin collections. You might have scarce dates or higher grade coins, so take advantage of the record high market price and the demand now. Whether you're buying or selling, or just want to find out values, trust the team at Fox Valley Coins. Fox Valley Coins is on Route 59, just one light north of I-88 at the Naperville-Warrenville border. Family-owned integrity since 1981.
Our veterans are our heroes. They answered the call to defend our freedom, putting their lives on the line for our nation. But today, thousands of those brave men and women are facing something no hero should ever face: food insecurity. That's where Farm to Veteran comes in. Through the Fulcrum Farm Foundation, this remarkable organization delivers farm-fresh, nutritious food directly to veterans in need through veteran services and organizations. From greenhouse-grown produce to eggs, they're ensuring our heroes have access to the high-quality food they deserve. But Farm to Veteran can't do it alone. They need our help. Your financial contribution directly supports their mission to feed more veterans across their growing network of partner farms nationwide. And there's another way you can make a difference. Join them at their upcoming community events. Visit farmtoveteran.com today. That's farm2veteran.com to donate or learn about events near you. Because those who served our country shouldn't have to wonder where their next meal is coming from. Let's stand with those who stood for us. That's farm2veteran.com.
When the power goes out, life stops. Heat, AC, fridge, phones, all gone. But with a Generac home standby generator from True Power Generator Service, your home powers back on automatically, so you're never left in the dark. Book your consultation today at truepowergenerator.com. That's TRUpowergenerator.com. Plus, 560 listeners get a free 10-year extended warranty. Terms and conditions apply. Call for details. True Power Generator Service and Generac. It's not just a generator, it's a power move.
AM 560, The Answer.
Coming up at 8:08, the part 2 of our Tom Dreesen interview. Again, you can get the full uninterrupted interview later today. We'll post it at morninganswerchicago.com. But it was such a treat. Tom Dreesen is such a class act, and he has so much to share. Part 2 really focuses on Hollywood and culture after part 1 was focused on Harvey and Chicagoland. Stay tuned for that at 8:08. It is now 8 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Check with your airline. CJ Papa, Fox News. That's if you have a flight today or for the foreseeable future. A large number of flights are canceled. Delays are stacking up this morning. Stems from the government shutdown, which reaches day 38.
We've got to figure out a way to work this out just to get the country back in order. It's been going on far too long. All this fighting is just crazy.
Fox's Jonathan Serra reporting from the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta.
Things are busy here at the world's busiest airport, but they are moving along. The TSA checkpoints are reporting wait times anywhere from no wait to 15 minutes, so that's pretty good. But passengers are noticing the effects. Federal transportation officials are cutting back on flights incrementally, starting with a 4% reduction today, leading up to a 10% reduction next Friday across 40 high-traffic airports, including New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and here in Atlanta.
Now, Republicans want to apply the pressure to Democrats, and could a move lead to the government reopening?
Senate Republicans are aiming for a test vote on a new spending package that would include long-term funding for the Department of Agriculture, the legislative branch, and the military until next fall. It would also include a promise for a vote on Obamacare subsidies. The deal's fate hinges on Democrats, though. Many want the government to reopen, but progressives are refusing to budge without a firm health care deal, warning moderates not to cave. Vice President J.D. Vance saying in part, the shutdown has now passed from farce into tragedy, and the consequences of this national emergency fall on every senator and congressman who refuses to open the government.
Fox's Madeline Rivera, the impact on the economy from the shutdown far worse than expected. White House Economic Advisor Kevin Hassett telling Fox Business this morning travel and leisure industry are among the hardest hit sectors. America's listening to Fox News.
Good morning, 52 degrees in Chicago and AM 560 The Answer. I'm John Cruz in the AlmostFreeTeeth.com newsroom. Partly cloudy, 61 today. Temps falling tonight with rain and wind. Snow on Sunday. Delays on top of cancellations as the nation's airports struggle with fatigued air traffic controllers. Close to 80 flights already canceled this morning at O'Hare. Almost 20 flights canceled at Midway. Several delays in place as well. American Airlines canceling about 200 of its 6,000 daily departures. United also saying half of passengers on flights canceled today were rebooked on other flights within a couple of hours. A Chicago City Council member considering a run for Congress, 25th Ward Alderman Byron Cicho Lopez, exploring a bid for the congressional seat that incumbent Jesus Chuy Garcia is leaving vacant. Cicho Lopez formed an exploratory committee. He also plans to meet with Garcia in the next few weeks. The candidates for Chicago Public Schools CEO are down to 2. The names on that list not public, but the Sun-Times reports that it does not include the name of interim CEO Macklin King. Now, the final candidates are expected to go through several interviews on Monday with the panel. The school board will hold a special session to decide who they want to hire. Illinois SNAP customers set to begin receiving partial November benefits. The Illinois Department of Human Services says anyone who is supposed to receive benefits November 1st through 6th will begin receiving partial benefits starting today. Now, this comes after a federal judge in Rhode Island ordered the Trump administration to fully fund the food assistance program by today. However, the administration filed a notice of appeal and decided to provide significantly reduced November SNAP benefits. And tomorrow morning, the Griffin Museum of Science and Industry lighting up with their Christmas Around the World and Holiday of Lights exhibition. This includes the lighting of a 4-story Christmas tree at 11 o'clock, children's choir, and cultural festival. Museum members get discounted admission. If you think full mouth dental implants are too expensive, think again, not at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. With medical insurance, you could save thousands and receive your finally affordable Great Dream Smile. Check if you qualify today at AlmostFreeTeeth.com. We're checking roads in 2 minutes, but now time for the AM 560 Business Beat, sponsored by Signature Bank.
I'm Liz Clayman, and this is the Fox Business Report.
The monthly employment report will not be published today because of the government shutdown. It's the second straight month with no update on the labor market. Economists believe September's report will be released within days of the government reopening, but are not sure a full report will be easy to produce because data wasn't being collected during the month. Honda Motor says the shortage of Nexperia chips will cut into its business, though in the U.S. the impact won't be as bad as initially expected. Nexperia chips are the product of a Dutch company but are made in China, where a dispute has disrupted production. The chips are used to perform many functions in cars. Honda is lowering its annual forecast. Shares of investment firm KKR are up 6%. Its summer quarter topped expectations. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Cosola. Invested in you.
Get your tickets for Freedom Summit Chicago 2025, happening on Saturday, November 8th at Westin Chicago Northwest and Itasca. This year, featuring Dr. Ben Carson, Scott Jennings, Mike Gallagher, along with Dan Proft, Sean Thompson, John Anthony, and many more. This event will sell out fast, so get your tickets today at freedomsummitchicago.com. That's freedomsummitchicago.com. Sponsored in part by Quick Delivery Service Incorporated and by Virago.
Well, that was a surprise. The HVAC tech just said our furnace apparently has a cracked heat exchanger, and it'll cost thousands.
Oh, you're kidding. He barely looked at it. Now he's pushing a huge repair? What should we do?
I don't really trust them. We need a second opinion. My brother Mark recommended Air Right Heating and Cooling. I looked them up and they seem legit. Great Google reviews. I'm sure they'd give us an honest assessment. He liked that they checked their carbon monoxide readings so he knows the air they're breathing is safe. And I guess it also gave a sense of how much life was left in their furnace.
I'd love that peace of mind. Plus, why spend a fortune on something we might not even need?
Get a second opinion from Air Right Heating and Cooling. Tell them AM 560 sent you and get $56 off any service. Visit Air Right Heating and Cooling right now at AIR-RITE.com. Again, that's AIR-RITE.com. Air Right Heating and Cooling. Doing it right since 1959.
Get 2 mattresses for the price of 1.
Whoa, what are you doing?
We don't do sales at Penny Mustard.
I know, Nicole.
So how can we offer 2 mattresses for the price of 1?
Because it's only 1 mattress.
You're not making sense, Ben. Have you been painting in confined spaces again?
Arvid, I'm talking about Penny Mustard's 2-sided mattresses.
Oh, I see. When you have a flippable 2-sided foam or coil spring mattress,
it's like having 2 mattresses for the price of 1.
You'll give each side more time to breathe.
And your mattress will last twice as long.
You use both sides of your pillow, and you should be able to use both sides of your mattress, too.
I don't use a pillow.
What do you use?
A cement block.
Really?
I find it relaxing after a long day of painting in confined spaces.
2-sided mattresses, because 2 is better than 1. Available every day at Penny Mustard Furnishings.
7 Chicagoland showrooms.
PennyMustard.com.
Better versions of what people want.
Penny Mustard Furnishings.
The Tunnel to Towers Foundation honors America's heroes. Heroes like Josh Bischoff. Josh began his firefighting career as a volunteer and ultimately became CAL FIRE's Assistant Chief of Tactical Air Operations until tragedy struck and he was killed in a helicopter collision while fighting a California wildfire. He leaves behind his wife Cheryl and their 2 children, Derek and Juliana. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation paid the Bischoff family's mortgage. Support heroes like Josh and their families. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
An official message from Medicare.
Medicare plans change from one year to the next. And this year, it's important for you to review your current coverage and compare all your options during Medicare open enrollment. Compare health plans, drug coverage, and costs. See if you can save some money, and don't forget to make sure your drugs are covered. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Visit Medicare.gov or call 1-800-MEDICARE.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Taking a look at the roads from the Team Hochberg Traffic Center, I'm Sue Aller. Stop and go delays on the express lanes of the inbound Dan Ryan, all because of a collision taking out the left and center lanes right at Garfield Boulevard. Delays begin at 63rd Street. Now the main roadway from 95th to the Byrne Interchange is 31 minutes. Outbound is 11. Northbound side of Lakeshore Drive, jam-packed approaching Hollywood Avenue. The inbound Stevenson from the Tri-State to Lakeshore is 33 minutes. Outbound is 17. We are stop and go on the northbound Tri-State because of real slow traffic on the ramp to the outbound Eisenhower, and then the southbound side of the Tri-State slows down at the Eisenhower with the collision blocking the left lane. Delays begin at the Grand Avenue curve. Now the Eisenhower inbound from Wolf to the old post office is 27 minutes. Outbound is 21, and you've got 32 minutes both ways on the Kennedy from O'Hare to the Byrne Interchange. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next, but now a check of your forecast from the National Weather Service.
Today will be breezy with clouds giving way to some sunshine, reaching a high of 63. Tonight, expect increasing cloud cover with a low of 43. Tomorrow will be cloudy and cooler with a chance of showers in the morning and rain in the afternoon. By nighttime, there is a possibility of rain transitioning to snow with a high of 48. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. Okay, part 2 of my interview with the great entertainer Tom Dreesen. We left off In the 7 o'clock hour, we were talking about Tom's connection still to the state of Harvey, talking to kids at Thornton Township High School, really talking about imbuing in them a sense of agency, that they're winners and they can be winners in life, and that sort of motivational talk. And then in the second part, we get into more about Hollywood and the culture there, and and with some fun stories, including a great story about Sinatra. So with that, part 2 of the Tom Dreesen interview, which you can get the uninterrupted interview later, posted at morninganswerchicago.com, morninganswerchicago.com. Here's part 2.
Well, I tell them that, look, I tell them that where I grew up at, and by the way, at one time, both my parents were alcoholic, and my mom later got out of that talk. My father died drinking, so all these things that happened to me is happening to some of them, but I put that aside and I said, no, I'm not a victim, I'm a victor, and there's nothing out there that you can't accomplish if you put your mind to it. And I tell them what books to read and all that sort of things. And
yeah, and I think part of like just the story of you having lunch with Harvey city officials too is where a lot of people are at, which is, is it possible for us to put our political differences together and just do what is pragmatic to improve a situation? And I wonder how that played out in Hollywood for you and others of your sort of can-do attitude over the decades in the entertainment industry. I don't know how much Hollywood has changed in terms of the importance of political positioning and people speaking out. I mean, I know Frank Sinatra, going back, supported FDR but was friends with Reagan and supported Reagan. So I don't know how, be interested in your perspective on how that was treated, maybe 50 or 60 years ago versus how that's treated now. But getting past the politics of this, because of course, we hear all the horror stories of people being canceled or marginalized for their politics, the shows that couldn't be made today. Mel Brooks couldn't have her career today. That's what Mel Brooks says. Things like that. And I just wonder how you've seen that evolve or devolve, because it's sort of the same thing as politics inhibiting people from working together.
It's funny you mentioned Mel Brooks. I did the movie Spaceballs with Mel.
Yeah,
I know Mel, and I love him. He's a funny guy. But Mel Brooks' movie Blazing Saddles, I made a joke about it a while back at a public gathering. I said ABC decided they're going to put Blazing Saddles on, but the politically correct police want to edit things out of the movie, so the movie would be shown from 8 o'clock to 8:07.
Exactly. That's about it. Right.
Well, there's no question that Hollywood. I'll tell you a story. Gary Sinise and I are the best of friends. By the way, Gary lived in Harvey for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And then he went from Harvey to Blue Island, and then from there to Highland Park. So Gary Sinise and I have been friends for years, and we were sitting in a restaurant several years ago, maybe a dozen years ago, called La Logia, a little restaurant where a lot of Hollywood people went in Sherman Oaks, or Studio City, it's in. So we're eating, and all the industry people are watching. Gary and I are talking about the Bulls, the Bears, and the Blackhawks, and I'm talking, loud, and Gary, and what about this and what about that? And then we start talking about our core values, and we started whispering. And I said, I stopped in the middle of it. I said, do you see what I'm doing? I spent 4 years in the military. I love my country. I believe in God, and I love my country, and I love this industry that we're in. I've been in it now over 55 years in show business, and I love show business. I love the people in it. But I'm whispering my core values for fear of retaliation by our industry. And Gary said, yeah, there must be more like us, in the industry. We started talking about it, and we got together with Gary set it up with about 10 people at a restaurant called Morton's one night, and we just discussed our core values. And then we decided, well, let's have another lunch meeting, and each guy bring in somebody else that you know in our business, a writer, a producer, a director, an actor, a comedian, a grip, but anybody in show business who might have our core values. And there were like 40 people at that luncheon. And then pretty soon we had another luncheon, there was another 40, and pretty soon we went to one of the actors in Hollywood decided to have a party at the house. And there's 160 of us. And then Kelsey Grammer had a party at his house. There was 680. And pretty soon there was 2,000 of us. Writers, producers, directors, grips. people like Robert Duvall, Clint Eastwood, John Voight. And it was a fun group. And so we were at the very first meeting when Gary and I were talking about this. I was joking. I said, we got to have, how do we know each other on a movie set or somewhere? And I said, well, if I hear somebody say something that I would think they have our core values, if somebody said, I believe in God, or gee, I love my country, chances are they're one of us. So I said, how are we going to know one another? Will we have a secret handshake? Or like the honeymooners, like we have the Royal Raccoons, and we're joking about that. Yeah. How we know? I said, my first manager in show business was gay. And he told me that when he came to Hollywood in the 50s, if gay guys were trying to find out who was gay in Hollywood, they would mention a name. They'd say, I talked to Dan the other day. He'd say, oh, is he a friend of Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz? And if they said, no, he's not, well, that would mean he wasn't gay. If he said, oh, yeah, he is a friend of Dorothy, that was their secret code of and then Alcoholics Anonymous, if you're in AA, they don't say, are you an alcoholic? They say, are you a friend of Bill? Like if you say something like, no, I don't drink, they'll say, oh, are you a friend of Bill? That's their code. Are you on the program? I said, we got to be a friend of somebody. I said, how about Abraham Lincoln? He came from Illinois. And I said to Gary, I said, maybe we could say, if we hear somebody on the set say something like that match our core values, we would say, are you a friend of Abe? And that way, the liberals in show business would think we're talking about an agent from William Morris.
Exactly.
and so we became friends of Abe, and it's well known, and it was well over 2,000. And Gary since moved his operation to Nashville, the Gary Sinise Foundation. I'm an ambassador. We build smart homes for the men and women, first responders, people who lose their arms or legs in combat and are on the job. And we built like almost 100 smart homes already. We raised money for it. So we've had operation to Nashville.
Yeah, we had Sinise on our show last year when he performed last summer. He and the Lieutenant Dan Band out here in suburban Chicago to raise money for his foundation. He does, and everybody associated with him does great work to support veterans.
Yeah, we go around the country. Gary Sinise has now done more shows for the troops than Bob Hope.
Wow.
Wow. Gary might be our greatest patriot today. He does 40 to 50 shows a year with the Lieutenant Dan Band, and because that was his character in Forrest Gump. And
but just going back to the Friends of Abe, I mean, 2,000 strong. That's not an inconsequential number, and you're talking about some names like Eastwood and Duvall that even many years ago were too big to be canceled, I suspect. So I just wonder why it still seems like it has to be whispered, or you need passcodes and secret handshakes to know you're talking to a fellow conservative, basically, in Hollywood.
Well, because they're by the way, I'll explain something. I was a Chicago Democrat. I always used to say in Chicago, the second you come out of the womb, they introduce you to your Democratic precinct captain,
right,
and then you get to meet your mom and dad.
Right.
But I was a Chicago Democrat. My core values have not changed. But in the words of Ronald Reagan, I didn't lead the Democratic Party; it left me. It's the core values I had then are the same core values I have today. And it's just that it's a totally different party today, And yet, I'm as liberal in a lot of thoughts as anybody else out there, a lot of actions and deeds. I worked for civil rights in my entire life. I toured the North and the South with a black man, with Tim Reed. Before that, when I was in the Navy, I took a blackjack upside my head, defending a black guy in, of all places, Norfolk, Virginia. To this day, my left ear still rings all the time where I got blackjacked upside the head. That's another story. That's in my book. How that came about. But and Harvey, when I was in the JCs, to bring race relations closer together, we would go door to door and get community attitude surveys, trying to bring people closer together. So I fought for civil rights as much as any liberal out there. But again, my core values have not changed. It's just that the party I was in changed.
And there's no appreciation for that in Hollywood, particularly somebody that comes to the table like you've just described with your track record, to say, I've fought the fights that you talk about fighting, and we may have some disagreements about the politics of the day or an issue of the day, but But I mean, the idea that you would try to isolate or otherwise harm the professional pursuits of somebody who disagrees with you, that's where we part company. And how does that conversation go?
Well, I say all the time that if there are three people up for a role, and any one of them could do it, and if the casting people, for the most part, found out one of them was conservative, there's no way in hell he or she's going to get that role. And you say that Clint Eastwood and Robert Duvall were above that. Clint Eastwood did a movie called American Sniper where he was the director.
Yeah.
And he, without a doubt, should have gotten the nomination and maybe Director of the Year. But he didn't even get 5 people were nominated. He wasn't even nominated. And when I was sitting with a group of my liberal friends playing poker, I mentioned that Clint should have got a nomination, and all of them said he got what he deserved. I said, what are you talking about? They said, him speaking at the Republican convention and speaking out against
Obama. Interesting.
I said, I thought being liberal, when I was in that faction, years ago when I was a liberal, I said, well, I thought being liberal meant that you separated art and politics. That's what liberalism was all about. But it's not about that now. It's about politics. And that's sad because I've been in the business all these years. I still work all the time. I've had a great career. But there are a lot of young kids in our industry that are afraid to speak out. And if they do, and just the other day, one of the actresses, I forgot, Jennifer Lawrence or something like that.
I saw that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She made a point, and it's a point. What I tell all my friends in show business, you think people give a damn who I voted for? What? I'm a comedian. You're an actor. They don't. You think they care? You think that that's going to help? It doesn't help, and it just divides the country even more.
It was really interesting. I thought it was quite mature of Lawrence to say, basically, my opinion doesn't matter to too many people, and if I weigh in, then it just further polarizes the discussion, and it also drives people away from my art and my films. Jennifer Lawrence has grown up a little bit, which is nice to see.
Yeah, and I'm a comedian. I come to your town because I want to make you laugh.
Right.
I'm hoping to bring you laughter. Now, if in the middle of that, if I stop and start telling you what I politically believe, I wouldn't blame people if they got up and walked out. Say, we didn't come here to hear your political beliefs. We came here to get some laughter. Laughter is healing. It's a great. Being a comedian is the greatest profession on the planet. It's not a theory anymore about laughter. The UCLA has done research on what happens to the human body when you laugh. Endorphins are released from the brain into the bloodstream, and a sense of well-being comes over you because your body's going through an actual chemical change. So laughter is psychologically a deterrent and physiologically therapeutic. So that's what I love doing. I love making people laugh, and my politics should be none of their business,
Before we let you go, I have to end with you telling a Sinatra story. I would be remiss if I didn't. And of the many stories I've watched from your performances that you've told, I always come back to the last time that you saw Frank Sinatra with friends at his home. Can you tell that story?
Yeah, sure. I've got 100 stories. I do a one-man show, as you know, called The Man Who Made Sinatra Laugh. It's a 90-minute show of stand-up comedy and storytelling that pictures come on the screen authenticating the stories that I'm telling. I've done it about 10 times in Chicago area, but anyhow, the story you're talking about, the last time I saw Frank, his 82nd birthday, it wasn't the last time I saw him. I saw him after he died 5 months later. Mm. And I went to his house, and we were having dinner, and a lot of his celebrity friends were there. And we didn't know Frank was quite with us at that time. He was off to the side having a bite to eat, and we were waiting for the cake to come out. And they started small talk. Somebody said, gee, where's the best place do you think to live? And Gregory Peck and his wife Veronique said, well, we have a villa in France, and we like it there a lot. Robert Wagner and Jill St. John said, we have a place in Aspen, and we like it there a lot. And over in the corner with his head down, we didn't think he was even paying attention. Frank said, the best place to live is where your friends are. And the whole room got quiet. And why I always say that was the last lesson Frank Sinatra taught me. He was a man, arguably the greatest career show business has ever known. I mean, not only was he a brilliant singer, the greatest pop singer of all time on the Billboard charts for like 45 years in a row or something, but he was a great actor. He won the Academy Award. He was Emmys, Grammys, amassed a fortune. he was sitting at 82 years old after accomplishing all that. In the end, he said that it's not about all that. It's about relationships. You know, the best place to live is where your friends are, you know.
Tom Dreesen, TomDreesen.com is the website. Again, his autobiography, Still Standing, My Journey from Streets and Saloons to the Stage and Sinatra. Tom, what a great treat to speak with you about all of these topics that we discussed, which we could, do 5-part series on all of them. But thank you so much for being generous with your time. It's great to speak with you at length, and congratulations on the astounding career that you've had and continue to have as you continue to work at the tender age of, well, I won't even mention.
I'm the oldest stand-up comedian still doing that. I didn't say this. AI Chat told me the other day, I'm the oldest stand-up comedian doing stand-up comedy today, male comedian. There's a female that's about 98 years old or something. Well, oldest male.
Don't let AI get you down, Yeah.
That's for sure.
Tom Dreesen, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Danny. I really appreciate it. My kind of town, Chicago is.
Take care, man.
Okay, buddy. You too.
And you join us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
At Signature Bank, going the distance for business banking customers is what we do every day. We understand that business owners have a strategic mission, a drive to succeed, a plan for growth, and don't have time to wait for a bank to respond. With Signature Bank, you not only have a banking partner that has roots right here in Chicago, but our decisions are made locally too. Signature Bank knows that when you have a question or problem about your business, you want answers. You need someone who will pick up the phone or respond to your text. You need someone who is always there for you. That's Signature Bank. We are a team that wants to get to know you and your business. Want to be Signature Bank's next success story? Give us a call today at 773-467-5630 or visit us online at signaturebank.bank. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
Sign up for the AM 560 Answer Advantage to get early alerts on event ticket sales, special discounts, and contest opportunities. Sign up today at 560theanswer.com/advantage. AM 560, The Answer.
Open mic! Open mic Friday! Call it now! Open mic Friday!
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. It is that time of the week. Open Mic Friday, taking your calls. 312-642-5600, Turnkey.Pro answer line. With comments, concerns, compliments, criticisms, general crackpottery. We'll take it all. And just to follow up on the second part of the Tom Dreesen interview you just heard completed, for some additional context to some of what we discussed about Hollywood, there were a couple of developments this week I thought that were kind of interesting. One, we spoke about, you heard Jennifer Lawrence on why she is not being as outspoken against Trump this term as she was his first term. And also George Clooney declining the opportunity to respond to what Baby Boy Hunter had said about him in a podcast, and his op-ed, his op-ed calling for Biden to step down and so on and so forth. Very interesting, very measured, unusually measured from Hollywood. And also Sydney Sweeney, with respect to Jean's ad in an interview that she gave to GQ. But since we talk about Jennifer Lawrence, let's start with her right here.
You have been politically outspoken in the past. Mm-hmm. In the first Trump administration, you had a lot to say. I'm curious how you feel about talking out now.
I don't really know if I should. I think the first Trump administration was so wild, and just how can we let this stand? I felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. But as we've learned, election after election, celebrities do not make a difference whatsoever on who people vote for. And so then what am I doing? I'm just sharing my opinion on something that's going to just add fuel to a fire that's ripping the country apart. I mean, we are so divided. I think I'm in a complicated recalibration because I'm also an artist, and with this temperature and the way that things can turn out, I don't want to start turning people off to films and to art that could change consciousness or change the world because they don't like my political opinions. I want to protect my craft so that you can still get lost in what I'm doing, what I'm showing. And if I can't say something that's going to speak to some kind of peace or lowering the temperature or some sort of solution, I just don't want to be a part of the problem. I don't want to make the problem worse.
So it's not like she's changed her views. She's just changed her approach about expressing her views. It's interesting. I mean, I stand by what I said in the Drees interview about showing some maturation, even as we have to sort of indulge the, my art, my craft, self-referential rhetoric. I mean, yeah, she's made some very bankable movies. She's been a part of some very profitable franchises, but in terms of her art, it's been a bit of a downward slide since Silver Linings Playbook for me. But I digress. George Clooney, I mentioned, also had the opportunity. That, by the way, that Jennifer Lawrence interview was with New York Times reporter Lulu Garcia Navarro. George Clooney had the opportunity to address his op-ed and the way the Harris for Biden switch-in happened, and Hunter Biden's antipathy for George Clooney taking part in engineering his father's ouster. And we're straying on Clooney's part, too.
During the election, you threw yourself into politics with that guest essay, New York Times. Looking back, would you do that again?
Yes. We had a chance. I wanted there to be, as I wrote in the op-ed, a primary. Let's battle test this quickly and get it up and going. I think the mistake with it being Kamala is that she had to run against her own record. And it's very hard to do if the point of running is to say, I'm not that person. It's hard to do. And so she was given a very tough task. I think it was a mistake, quite honestly. But we are where we are. We were going to lose more House seats, they say. So, I don't know. To not do it would be to say, I'm not going to tell the truth.
Did you see Hunter Biden's reaction?
Yeah, I saw it.
What did you make of it?
Well, I could spend a lot of time debunking many of the things he said, because many of the things he said were just outright lies. Obama didn't put me up to it. It wasn't my fundraiser. It was my fundraiser. All the things. But the reality is, I don't think looking backwards like that is helpful to anyone, particularly to him. I don't think it's helpful for the Democratic Party. And so I'm just going to wish him well on his ongoing recovery, and I hope he does well, and just leave it at that.
Okay. Yeah, he's smart enough to know that continuing to keep Biden and Kamala and the 24 election cycle front and center, probably not in his political interests in terms of what he would like to see happen. All right, one more Hollywood snippet to just throw into the fold in terms of comments, since we talked quite a bit about Hollywood with Dreesen. Sydney Sweeney sat down for an interview with GQ, and of course was asked about the Jeans ad, right? JEANSGENES. The little play on words that American Eagle did that created such a furor among the identitarian set. So asked about, Trump's social media defense of her, and if she'd like to, comment on the criticism.
I'm literally in jeans and a t-shirt like every day of my life. Jeans are uncontroversial. Jeans are awesome.
I like your jeans.
You look great in your jeans. I think I know how you're going to answer this, but I'm going to ask anyway. I mean, the president tweeted about the jeans ad, or Truth Socialed about the jeans ad, and that just seems to me like a very crazy moment for anyone, and I wondered what that was like.
It was surreal.
It was surreal.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be totally human. I would probably feel like thankful that somebody had my back in public, you know, and conveniently some very powerful people had my back in public. And I wondered if you felt that way.
I don't think that it's not that feeling I didn't have that feeling, but I wasn't thinking of it like that, or like of any of it. I kind of just put my phone away. I was filming every day. I'm filming Euphoria, so I'm working like 16-hour days, and I don't really bring my phone on set, so I work and then I go home and I go to sleep. So I didn't really see a lot of it.
You've made a really good case for keeping your thoughts and your life separate from that work. But the risk is that, you know, there's a chance that somebody will get some idea about what you think about certain issues and feel like, I don't want to see Christy because of that. Like, do you worry about that?
No.
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like, white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like, that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
And now she's being criticized for dismissing the opportunity to respond on point to the absurd criticism that was somehow a promotion of genetic supremacy with a little play on words. I mean, I think pretty judicious by Sweeney, because this will quickly move on. And it was also, I mean, it wasn't quite Connie Chung, you know, whispered in my ear, but pretty close with this ridiculous reporter for GQ and her sing-songy, like, da, 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 which is so annoying. Effort to get her to comment. I mean, there was a whole run-up to get her to comment on the left's completely silly criticism of her and that commercial. All right. Take a couple calls. Colleen, Wicker Park.
Hi, Dan. You and I have spoken before. We talked about patent saving horses in Europe. But when I was enjoying your interview with Tom Dreesen, as a child, I remember him. My grandparents lived down the street from him, and so when I came to visit Grandma and Grandpa, there he was hanging out with my youngest uncle, and they would play baseball in the side yard, and he had multiple lots, and all boys were there, and so I remember him very well. And when he talked about the race riots in Harvey, I was a freshman in high school that year, and I saved the lid from the tear gas canister that they threw off. I was there for the first annual spring riot. It happened every year that I was there. Weather was nice enough. We found something. Well, certain people found enough to be upset about that they, would call a riot, and then everybody's out of school, and there was a big mess. And yeah, I talked to my husband, and he talks about his childhood school, my high school memories. I go, I don't have any of those. I went to school and I got the hell out of there. But yeah, I remember it. Everything he said was so true. It was so true. And yeah, it was fun because it took me right back there to those days. And he's everything he said was on the nose.
Thanks for the call, Colleen. Appreciate it. Yeah. And I mean, many people commented on just like how sharp Dreesen is. So I'm sure that sharp when I get to that age. Gosh, I wish I was that sharp at my age versus his age. and how sharp he is. No, it was fun. That's why it was so great to talk to him, is because he's got such recall of, I mean, his own history, in addition to, all of his experiences in Hollywood and the perspective he has, and the stories about him and Tim Reed starting out when they sort of fell into comedy. I mean, incredible. And I think that's an underappreciated part of his dossier too, which is that he and Tim Reed were, positive forces for race relations in a particularly difficult time. Trailblazers, really. Eduardo, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, good morning, Dan. Well, first, let me say I'm glad I'm not flying out for your thing tomorrow, because I might be stuck at the airport.
Possible.
Yeah, but moving on here, I think next year, because after what happened on Tuesday's election, regarding these two stories I'm going to mention, the white envelope at Andrews Air Force Base, and I'm looking at this flare that went up in the Paris, Illinois Philharmonica Orchestra, where they're beating up this guy.
Yeah.
Because the lit up flare, yeah. I think these lefties are going to get really wild next year with the midterm elections going into, next November. They're going to get more crazier.
Thanks for the call, Eduardo. Janice, Naperville.
Yeah, I was just calling to say it just sounded so much like Old Home Week talking to Tommy Dreesen. I, too, went to Thornton Township High School and loved it there. And I grew up in Dalton and then, hung out in Harvey. But he's actually my dad's cousin. So
oh, wow.
It was interesting to hear his views, and I loved hearing from him.
Thanks for the call, Janice. We love talking to him. Frank, Board of Trade.
Hi, good morning. I saw that woman who ran into the preschool, that's getting national attention now. She should have just run into a police station. They could have let her out the back.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Frank. Well, I mean, this, I posted about the interview that we did with Ron Vitiello yesterday, former ICE director, and his point that, she was on the list for apprehension because she had allegedly conspired with human traffickers to have her sons illegally smuggled into this country, which is problematic. Conspiring with human traffickers to do anything, problematic. And I think if that information was more widely known, then maybe she would be seen as less sympathetic. And a true response on X, of course. Some people that I guess present as being affiliated with the daycare center that she allegedly worked at. They allegedly have kids there, know her, and so forth. That she is a teacher. I'm like, well, okay, she's a teacher. And that she's an American citizen. Well, DHS said she was undocumented. Mike Quigley said she had a work permit. Somebody else says she's an American citizen. I don't know which one is true. This is why I'm, calling out DHS as I did yesterday to make sure this information gets out, the evidence is presented, and the questions are answered. But her status as a teacher is irrelevant in terms of her legal status in this country. That's number one. Number two, if she is an American citizen, why would she run from police? If she had a work permit, why would she run from police? And as general statement, what do you think you're going to accomplish resisting arrest? What do you think you're going to accomplish running for police? Do you think you run into the daycare center and then they just say, okay, well, she ran into the daycare center, so let's pack it in, boys. I mean, it's honestly. Tom in Blue Island.
Hey, Dan, happy Friday. Right, Dan, like running into the daycare center was the safety zone, like when you were playing tag when you were a kid or something. Dan, my question for you, if I, and you're the legal authority, obviously, did we not have a 6-3 decision limiting the power of these federal judges, and it seems like we're still getting our daily story of a federal judge stopping some authority of the presidency or the executive orders. Now with the broad, I'm just wondering, is there something I'm missing there? Because it seems like everything going on with these federal judges hasn't changed.
Well, thanks for the call, Tom. Yeah, you still have a lot of politicians in robes. And of course, at the district court level, they can issue these TROs, and then you have to litigate them. What the Supreme Court doesn't prevent judges from issuing these TROs and trying to slow down Trump administration policies. It just provides the precedent that the Trump administration can use when it has to appeal a federal district court judge's TRO or decision to an appellate court and potentially to the Supreme Court. You have a precedent that was set by the Supreme Court. You have stare decisis on your side, so it provides a trump card, if you will, for the administration where the power to do something is clear. So, but it doesn't mean that the lawfare stops and the attempt to, again, do through the courts what you can't do through Congress. That doesn't stop. Left never stops. Russ, Palos Heights.
Thanks. The Supreme Court dealing with the tariffs reminds me that, or it gives me the impression they're dealing in checkers, while Trump is dealing in the game of chess in order that our economy is improved by virtue of how he handles those various arrangements around the world.
Well, thanks for the call, Russ. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure it's checkers and chess. It was a confusing day yesterday. I mentioned, I posted about this last night, particularly after the donut hole versus different type of pastry. It was sort of a Zen moment, like a Zen moment from Ty Webb in Caddyshack. A flute with no holes is not a flute. A donut with no hole is a Danish. Yeah, think about that. But you had all sorts of complicated arguments. But not almost, counterintuitive. There were arguments that tariffs currently throwing off revenue are not revenue-related instruments. Sauer, Trump's Solicitor General, made that argument. That Americans paying taxes in the form of tariffs passed through to importers and consumers are not actually paying taxes. Also Sauer. They're to be considered regulatory fees. It's a parsing of words, one might argue. Now, the flip side, the other side, and this was the Kavanaugh donut hole thing, that the president has the power to eliminate trade altogether, but not to inhibit trade to a lesser degree. And then lastly, that at some point, and this is back to Sauer, Trump's side, that at some point tariffs will or could create complete inelasticity of demand for foreign products, such that Americans would not pay a cent in tariffs because they would only buy their American substitutes. And thus, they're not a tax and they're not a revenue instrument. That's never going to be true. It's not true now, and it's never going to be true. So, I think the chess match is about what you can extract in terms of executive authority that is above and beyond what's already provided by various federal statutes in the context of perhaps the cost, and I actually don't think it's that involved, but arguably the cost of unwinding all that Trump has negotiated and imposed by executive authority to this point. We talked to Professor Jacobson from Cornell about this yesterday. He thinks it's a very close call. I think that a lot of what Trump has done under IEEPA, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, is a stretch, to be honest. But we'll see where the court comes down. It may end up being a close call. It may end up being like a 4-4 and Roberts does for Trump what he did for Obama with Obamacare. That would not surprise me. Dawn, Naperville.
Hi, good morning. I really appreciate Tom, the comedian you were interviewing, his explanation to kids about the intricacy of God's design in the womb, how he explains how important you are, how precious you are in his sight, starting from the moment you're created. And I just really appreciate that because it changes your mindset. You realize that God has a purpose and a plan for your life. And it really changes your wisdom and how you see things. And I think these kids can see it. The opposite of that is chaos. Is what was the other the person you were interviewing before? They were talking about assisted suicide.
Yes, the state representative, right? Yes, Dr. Howder.
Yeah, and you know what's really sad? There are some countries that actually promote, especially for children with Down syndrome. They're actually, I think it's New Zealand. They're actually promoting it, and it's really sad. And you know what? No matter what, God has a purpose and a plan for your life. No matter how this world wants to put things on you, God has a purpose and a plan, and it's beautiful.
Thanks for the call, Dawn. David Winnetka.
Hey, Dan, happy Friday. I'm talking about the assisted suicide, the euthanasia segment, and I'm playing devil's advocate on this one only because, Kevorkian, everybody called him Dr. Death and how terrible he was and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, most of those people he was assisting, they had Lou Gehrig's disease, they had ALS, and with ALS, you can literally, your mind is fully functional, and so you feel your muscle is literally being eaten. You can feel that pain. You can only imagine how horrifically horrible that's got to be. And so, with that kind of a thing, I just, I'm all for the assisted suicide. Right now, there's 5,000 people that die every year from ALS, and it's pretty much the same the amount of people that get shot here in Chicago over a good weekend. All right, thanks so much.
Thanks for the call, David. Yeah, I mean, that's the sentimental argument that the pro-suicide side makes. But yes, I mean, obviously ALS is one of those horrible diseases, horrible afflictions that you wouldn't wish on anybody. But I mean, there's sort of the philosophical question about the importance of suffering, and it's not, there's a lot of value in suffering. I mean, if you want to get into a sort of philosophical, theological discussion. But the more practical point is you'll have these pro-suicide types. And by the way, the Venn diagram of like pro-abortion, a ZPG, zero population growth, and assisted suicide is like almost a perfect circle. So you may want to at least consider some of the company you're keeping intellectually. But in addition to that, there's no limiting it. Once you violate the Hippocratic Oath, once you open the door to the state being in the business of assisting people in killing themselves, how do you limit it, David, or anybody else? Oh, it's only for ALS and for cancer. What kind of cancer? What stage? What's the prognosis? Chances of survival? Effectiveness of treatment? There has to be a limiting principle here, because in reality, that's not how it works. And I mean, this is not a laboratory experiment. Look at Western European countries. Look at states like Oregon and Washington State. Look at Canada, as we talked about with the state legislator. It starts with the appeal is based on ALS, a disease no one would ever want to have. People understandably afraid of because that the kind of suffering that it entails, being trapped in your own body and still having cognitive function, like Steve McMichael. We all watched that, and how badly we felt for Mongo and so forth, and so many other examples. Of course, this is not that you don't have empathy for people that have afflictions, but look at what happens when you put this into the legal and political realm. take some instruction for how it actually plays out in reality. Let's be practical here and understand the forces that are behind this and what their larger intent is. And not that, again, look at the evidentiary, the body of evidence that has been established by states that have done this and are much further along than Illinois. And tell me how you draw that line, where you draw it, how you maintain it. You don't and you can't. Kevin in Austin, Texas.
Dan, thanks for taking my call. I want to follow up on the previous call, not the suicide one, but the other woman talking about the Down syndrome and the value of the soul and that type of thing. I really want to thank you for posting that. As you know, I've got a daughter with Down syndrome. She's 17, and she does have a distinct personality, and she's also a 17-year-old in high school. We drive her across town, so she has inclusion and all that. I think that also benefits not just her, but also all the kids around her. I mean, when we grew up, we're around the same age, kids were sent off and then isolated from the community. And I think it really benefits all the kids that are around her because they've seen her. They've gone to school with her the whole time. And I think that's changing on that. And I think it's Iceland that has zero. They talk about zero. They've solved the Down syndrome problem because they kill all the babies or they abort them all. Anyhow, thank you for posting that. And just to take this to a political direction, I can't stand how the left plays on sympathy with kids with special needs and that type of thing. But in practicality, every illegal alien that has Medicaid is taking away from a family or that has a child or something like that. They could probably use the Medicaid for that. So I can't stand how the left manipulates people who have children with special needs.
Yeah.
And I also, and one other thing, to go along with that, the guy who won in Nassau, the executive and all that, you have to be bold and rational and that type of thing. When I was down here in Texas, I came a precinct captain because somebody knocked on the door and they were bold talking about Trump and that type of thing. But I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to direct a vote. But that's not the way to do it. It's just to get involved. And you're going to have these people that are okaying suicide. They stay in power because people that believe in faith, that are afraid to get involved, they'll listen to your show and nod along with you, but they're not getting involved. And I really think that there are places in Illinois that can change things. And we got a great opportunity because there's a governor's election that's coming up. So anyhow, thank you so much for posting that. And by the way, my daughter has a full range of emotions, and sometimes she's a pain in the ass teenager. She's got her own distinct personality.
Thanks for the call, Kevin. Appreciate it. By the way, just on the note, since David from Neck had brought up Kevorkian and all of his, allegedly good deeds, lest we forget, Kevorkian was convicted of second-degree murder in Michigan, served 8 years in prison. There's not even a limiting principle when it comes to the actual practitioners. And you really want doctors to be in that business? Sanctioned by the state? You don't. Chuck in Delavan.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, I turned 70 on November the 5th. It was so good. I had such a great birthday. And the people from the Como Clubhouse in Lake Como, they contacted me and they said they fired me as a Santa Claus. So I want to tell everybody, stay home. Don't come up here. Don't spend no money. Stay home.
Okay, don't go to the Lake Como Clubhouse. We got that, but can we come up to celebrate your 70th birthday?
Nope. 70th birthday's over with. But anyway, everybody stay home. Don't come to Lake Geneva.
Okay. Boy, a salty Chuck after being fired as the Santa up there. I'm sorry to hear that. Thanks for everybody who called in and tuned in today and all week. It is now 9 o'clock on AM 560 WIND Chicago.
Fox News, I'm Therese Crowley. 4 for flying. Today it's 4% flight reductions. The FAA ordered